And roll call, Ms. Fabiano,
Yeah.
Mr. Ucolito,
Yep.
Mr. Corey.
Here.
Okay, and we have many other people, Board of Ed members, central office, too many to name. And it's great that they're all here. Mr. Lafreniere, teacher representative, I see you over there. How are you?
Hanging in there, thank you.
Okay. Approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Approval, we're not approving minutes, okay. Can I have a, actually, can I have a, an amended motion to approve the agenda with taking item 4 off?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We don't have any minutes from last month to approve. We already did that. So. Public participation. Anybody on public line? No? Okay. If someone joins, just let me know and we'll let them give a shout out.
Nikki and Gary and Nikki.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Was there an updated agenda? Because the one that I'm showing doesn't have minutes listed on it.
Oh, it was probably an updated one. Yes.
Marissa's shaking her head yes.
Yeah,
so.
Marissa sent
Yeah.
it this afternoon.
Okay.
And monthly financials.
Okay, if you go to page 1 and 2,
Yep.
No one's on.
go to page 1 and 2, the surplus has increased by 104,000. Last month it was 736,570. It's 841,198. So we're heading, this is only in the February.
February, yeah, we
So
gotta,
we
yeah,
can see.
don't get too excited,
Yeah.
right? That can happen in
Yeah.
April and May.
Right. So next, any questions on that? That gives you, again, it's not every account, what happens again. And in May, I list every account like we always do. So to show you on each time. So we'll do that again in May to help out like we did last year to show where the surplus is in all accounts. So we'll do that
Great,
in May.
thank you.
Usually I do 2 or 3 in May and send it to you.
Yeah.
Next month is,
Hold on one second.
Sorry.
Any questions on that? No?
just shows you where we're going on each month, on each account. Remember, these are not all the accounts. Again, in May, I will drop I usually put all the accounts and then the final, and the financials.
And this
so
is of the end of February.
correct.
All right, thank you.
Next one is special ed tuition. And also, if you look at special ed tuition on page 3 and the out of district on page 4, just give you a couple of ideas. Remember, my numbers are a little different than Laura's numbers because my numbers have to include everybody who we've paid. So there have been 5 children. 4 of them have left early. What does that mean? They're not here 180 days. They may have been here 60 days, 70 days, and so forth. So I still have to count those in because we're paying for them. And we had one that started late. So that one's in here too. So my numbers are, again, a little different than Laura's numbers because she takes those 4 kids out, they're gone. I can't take them out because we've already paid for them.
Right.
So just want to let you know where that stands. We had one more child in the suspension that we're paying, and we had one more child in exploration.
One additional in each of
Correct,
those
one additional
categories.
account, right.
From
Well,
last month.
Correct.
Okay.
Just to let you know, this is off the topic. Remember, in November, I send a note to the VOAG schools.
Mhm.
So this is the first time ever that they're sending their names to me right away. So they know how many kids they have to have in freshmen. So just let you know, we got Region 7s today. Region 6 we got last week. So
Oh, okay.
so it's the first time ever.
Head of the game.
Yes.
Good.
Because they get my letter in November and so forth. So
Very good. Thank you. Any
So
questions?
last month it was 680, we have 684. Again, the 2 special ed, the 1 expulsion, and the 1 exploration.
+4.
Right.
Any
Still-
questions on that?
We're still down from last year.
Go ahead.
Just what is the court? Why is the court one so much over?
It's only 2 students.
Right, but those 2 students are the dollar amount.
Oh,
is
the dollar
120,
amount,
Yeah, that's what they tell us.
Yeah.
So those 2 students,
They're probably in some serious placement, wherever they sent them.
I won't tell you where the placement is, but I'll
No.
tell you we're saying that one of the children may spend 175 days there, okay, the court place. We don't know if it's gonna be 100, so we encumbered 175. The other one is the 67 days. So we encumber for the total.
So just to be clear, so those aren't special education
N-
department placements?
No, the court.
Those are court-placed students.
And they're our kids, but they're placed somewhere.
And when you encumber, do you encumber for just the days that they're?
No.
You for the whole?
So
year?
whatever we think of is gonna be
Got it.
175
So it
days.
could be less.
Correct.
Right.
And every month we update it.
Got it. That's what I thought you said, but I wanted
Yeah,
to
no.
make sure that that's what I heard.
So it's,
Any questions on that? Okay, thanks.
transportation. Again, those are the notes. Also, when I spoke to All-Star, remember, towards the end of the year, like we did last year, we're gonna review everything, how many buses they used, all that, and hopefully we'll get a credit like we did last year. But it won't be that much because they're still running the buses for parochial, for the VOAG schools and so forth. So we'll be sitting down and again, they've been very reasonable last year. For this year, they gave us a credit, as you can see on the bottom, 264,000, and then 4 days of reduction, 71,000. And also, I think most of them, bus drivers got their shots already. Okay,
They got their first, yeah.
first shots, so
Mhm.
that helps with the drivers.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Keep them in the seats.
Yeah. The next one is the long one.
Can I just go back?
Yeah, oh yeah, no problem.
So come summertime, is that gonna be, how do we pay for buses come summertime? Would that be going to CARES money or if we have summer school?
Oh, if we have summer
Right,
programs?
we have summer programs.
Yeah, that, we did a lot for it. We have some money in Alliance, we have some money in CARES.
We also, in our budget, there's money for special ed
Some-
that we always take
Yep.
care of summer school.
For the extended year students, so.
Correct.
So
Will we have enough, you think, for the summer, or will we have to use some of the surplus? I'm just curious. But we don't know yet.
We don't know
kids
yet.
coming back.
We've got to get a little more clarification.
the long sheet.
Again, this is all of Kelly and Delta's that we use. If you look at number 1, 5341, if you look at projecting to the end of the year, because you budgeted 400,000, we may have a surplus in that account of at least 200,000. Okay. You go to number 2, which is 120,000, and it's only $1,300 because we got a credit from the COVID expenses.
Okay.
Okay, so that we may have a surplus of about 100,000 in that account. Going to number 3, which is the 5340, that one will probably have a deficit of about 216,000.
And why would that be?
Those are We're paying for nurses there, we're paying for BCBA, we're paying for, if you just hold on 1 second. The special ed part only, okay?
All
We
the
have
specialist
evaluations in
areas.
there, we have PT services in there, we have BCBA, we have teletherapy, social worker, behaviorists in that. So those are,
Will CARES money go to that or no? Or you've already taken care
we're
of
all taking care of CARES. A lot of stuff won't be allowed in my CARES, not her CARES.
Yeah.
We have two
Care-
different-
CARES 1 has already been expended.
Yeah.
Yes,
So now we're on to CARES 2.
and then there's a CARES 3.
Yeah.
That's okay. Then the fourth one, 534101. That may have a surplus of about 18,000.
Mhm.
The next one, 512002, number 5, that may have a surplus of $1,900. 534201, number 6, that may have a surplus of 25,000. And 512003, number 7, that's going to have a surplus too. So if you look at all of them, with 407,000 surplus, 216,000 deficit, about 190,000 surplus
Total.
total. And every month I always update it, so.
Any questions on that? Ed?
Nope.
Okay. All right.
Okay, on page 9, which is electricity, I'm still carrying a surplus in that account.
So 7, 8, and 9 go together.
Correct.
Okay.
But I just, 9 is the last page this year. We're still looking at about a $25,000 surplus. It hasn't fully come in, the middle school lights, they're all finished, but we haven't seen those bills yet. Okay. And the next one on
Will we know next month, or will we
Should
have
be.
to wait another month?
I'll see what next one is.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
The next one is the natural gas. That is showing, we had a surplus in there. Right now, as of now, it's showing only a surplus of about $5,000. So I'll keep an eye on that for the next month.
It's about 5,000.
Yep. One more item. Chairman, we had a problem at Torrington School.
Thank you. This wasn't in the packet?
Correct.
It,
It was not.
Okay. Ms. Harold, do you have
I'm
it?
gonna take a picture and I already have a lovely one.
Here's that.
Thank you.
Is John online? No. Okay. Well, I'll read it for you. On March 12th, John investigated an issue with the light pole in the parking lot, which fell down, and the snowplow guy is going to replace it. He noticed water bubbling up from the manhole in the grass. As he exited his car, he smelled sewage around the manhole. I contacted WPCA about a possible sewage leak. They sent a crew up with a vac truck to investigate. WPCA crews informed me of a possible break in the sewer lateral line from the school to the street. Contacted American Router to jet and camera the line. A break was found in the clay pipe about 4 feet from the city sewer line. The sewer lateral will need to be replaced from the manhole between the parking lot and Charles Street to the manhole on Charles Street. There's approximately 40 feet of pipe to replace. Below is the picture of the pipe collapse. So what happens now? The water goes through, but the solids and all of
Solid doesn't go
that, so we have to pump it. The problem with this is we're gonna have to close Charles Street up to Knoll,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
The two, it's right in between the two entrances and exits.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're looking to do that hopefully on a Saturday.
Saturday, I was gonna say.
If not,
Saturday.
It's gonna be it's not a problem with the high school, because they can go down Kennedy Drive and up Knoll and that way. It's the elementary's coming up, they can come up, but then going home, they can't make that left. So we're still working with a contractor to see when we can do it. We want to do it sooner rather than later, because we have to keep on pumping it.
Do we have an estimate?
He's just given us a estimate between 20 and 25,000. He doesn't know because
Yeah, till he gets in there.
until he gets in there, so.
Is the manhole in the middle of the street, or where's the manhole? On Charles Street.
There's one in the middle of the street,
So they're gonna go from middle of the road.
right, to ours, yeah. If it wasn't in the middle of the road, you could close off and let it go through, but
I don't know if we propose it, but that'll be the contractor's decision.
Yeah.
How deep is it, do we know? We don't know.
John is not on the line, I couldn't tell you.
If it's deep, it's a problem.
I'll find out, have John.
I have a silly question.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So is the pipe broke towards the school, or is it the pipe in the road?
No, the pipe broke in the school.
Yeah. But it's gotta be replaced all the way to the
To the-
manhole.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
So,
And we couldn't sleeve it because it's broken.
I was just asking
Yeah.
about the sleeve.
yeah, it's clay.
Yeah.
Do-
Go
Do
ahead.
we do this or is the city?
We do it. It's our property.
You work on that Saturday, you know
Know that you want me doing that.
We're looking for volunteers on
that?
Saturday.
I'll be the flag girl.
Put your boots on.
I can handle that.
Bring a shovel.
So that's the worst we have all year. We're okay.
That's our biggest emergency.
Yeah, I know, right?
As my old mother used to say, poo, 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 you know? Okay, so just want to let you know, we'll let you know when we're gonna do it.
Do we know a cost estimate?
I'm sorry,
Cost?
about 20, 25,000, I don't know yet, but that's what.
All right. Any other questions on that? Very good. Ed?
No, I'm good here.
Okay. I don't want to forget you.
The next one is COVID. As you can see, we got our third payment. So we're a total of $603,810.27. That's we're going for our fourth payment. We're getting those bills and checks together to send it to the state. So we haven't decided, we haven't finished what our fourth payment will be. So update on that.
Can I ask
Go
a
ahead.
question? I think last time you said some of this gets rolled into general budget.
Yeah, some, like the first one is sanitizers. The difference is in the budget. It shows a deficit.
Got it. Okay, so the balance
Right, is in our,
is in the general
correct,
budget.
correct.
And then you'll see it in ESER two again.
Yeah.
To pick it up, so
Okay.
it gets confusing.
Mhm.
Any other questions on that? No? Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Next one is the roof.
Roof closeout?
Yeah. We finished the middle school roof, because I was away, I couldn't do it when I was there, so right now, is the contracted amount and what we paid. Remember, bonding was 700,000. We only spent 619,305.78. So there's a savings of $80,000 there. So what I need, just, I'm just letting you know that is bring it to the board to make the formal closeout. We send it to the state. We haven't asked for any money yet because it was a small project. So we send everything in at once, so they'll give us the reimbursement. Whatever.
Okay. All right, perfect, thank you. Any questions on that? Yes, Mr. Lafreniere.
Can you just speak to the, I know that there's still some issues where there's staining of the new tiles that there's coming. Is there,
That's the metal roof that's leaking.
so that has nothing to do with the flat roof replacement?
Correct.
Thank you.
It's metal or the old roof? It doesn't matter. Did we replace the whole roof?
No,
No, I didn't think so.
place anything there. No, just the flat roof.
Just-
That's
yeah,
what I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the flat part. We didn't
Yeah.
do the metal part. Okay. No other question. Excess cost grant.
It's what I give you all the time, 2 years. It'll be the third year.
Yeah.
So while we do October, we get from the state what our threshold is. That's what our per pupil costs are. And then we have 4.5 times it. So that's whatever the student costs 100,000. They give us the difference between 100,000 and 80,696. February, the figures came in. The threshold went up to 17,942, and the 4.5 is 80,737. This year so far, as you can see, the difference from last year to now, we do submit one in March, which we did. The reimbursement this year is 83%. Why? I would assume because a lot of the schools are doing virtual learning and so forth, so the costs aren't that great. So we'll see what happens when they give us the total. So right now, if everything goes right, the city will get $2,014,731. But again, that can change, because if you look at 1920, it went from $2,003,000 to $2,037,000.
Right.
Because the reimbursement rate went from 74 to 70. Right.
Okay.
So in May, we'll give you those updated figures.
Yeah.
Ed, do you have handy what the city budgeted for the excess cost
This year?
for this year?
No, I called Alice, but she was away. I'll find out tomorrow.
Okay.
I thought I remember a number around 1,008,000.
Could be.
I
I
thought I
don't.
remember that number.
Yeah, because that's what last year's was.
Yeah. It's not, if you look at their budget only gives you the expenditures.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay. All right, the ESSER II CARES Act 2 funds.
So we had a bit of a wrinkle in the amount that you see. This is the same proposal that I have been giving
Do we
you the
have a
last.
copy of
We
that?
don't have it in the
Yeah.
packet.
Okay, can you just find it for me? Oh, it's the same. Sorry, do you want to just,
Same as the old one.
it's the same as the old one. It's the same as
I have the
the,
old one.
Oh,
it's the same. It
as the
has
old one?
green at the top, yellow
Yeah.
at the
Okay.
bottom. It's the same thing.
I have the old one. I
Like
don't
it's
need it.
3/8.
Do you have an extra?
I have the other one.
So look,
Do you-
Dated
Look at the
3/8.
date of American.
it should be 3/8,
On the
yep.
top
Yeah.
right.
I think it's 3/3/21.
All right, it's 3/8.
Yeah.
I need one
It's up
too.
there. 3/8/21, correct?
Ally, you
Got
want
it?
to just make a couple copies?
She's got it.
She's got it.
I
Okay.
have it.
All right, so I'm just gonna speak to this first while they're making the copies. So the state made a mistake,
Uh-oh.
and then they corrected the mistake, then they made the mistake again, then they corrected the mistake. So, last Friday, we had an emergency meeting about ESSER funds. So they couldn't decide whether they were basing the amount of money on the 2019 Title I
Thank you.
allotment or the 2020, thank you, Ollie, allotment. So
Say that one more time. I
when,
didn't- Basing it on what?
just hear the whole thing,
Oh,
then
okay.
I'll explain it, okay? So the 2019 allotment was the 2.9 that you have in front of you. The 2020 Title I allotment was 2.6 million. So because the state made the mistake, and I believe this is a rare occurrence, however, what they are doing is they are holding the districts harmless, and they will still give us the 2.9 million figure that you have exactly in front of you.
Okay.
I was very impressed with
no action here.
Acting Commissioner Charlene Russell Tucker. She spoke about the mistake. She acknowledged the mistake. She was honest. She was upfront, and very clear that they would own the mistake, and that they would be doing a review of their business affairs and making sure that going forward they were doing things correctly. And she apologized. She was lovely. And I really was very impressed with her presentation that day. So even though we have about a 300,000 shortfall, what we will do is we will apply for the full amount, but we will do it with the 300,000, and we can pick anything from this, and then put it in our budget mod, but we submit the whole thing for the full amount. So even though it's in two pieces, it's exactly the same thing. So we just have to worry about the paperwork, but I don't want anybody to panic if you see publicly that it's 2.6 that we're getting, because we will be receiving the 2.9.
Got it.
So sorry about all that confusion.
So you just have to do it in another modification.
Correct. We just
You
have to do it in two
parts,
different,
yeah.
correct. And then just explain what our needs are. So, and
Fair
then they've
enough for
extended the
$200,000.
application instead of April 5th, now it's extended to April 19th. So, but basically we're ready. And I don't see any reason why the state would deny any of the things that we've put in here. We have a number of academic supports, the transportation's there toward the bottom here, about 3/4 of the way through. We have the sanitizers once again in there for that portion that Ed was talking about, that's in GB, making sure that we have technology, our software in there, as well as SEL, our social emotional supports.
Any questions on that?
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I hope I can
Did you have
answer.
anything? Okay,
No, and I
That's
just
something that
voiced
the
it
state is
the
doing.
last meeting, and I just wanted to voice again that I'm really concerned about us paying for the IT techs out of this, because we can never go back to our IT department before
Mhm.
with all of the
Mhm.
devices that we have now.
Mhm.
And so I understand that it goes to 2,000. I'm just worried about the other side of this bubble when this bubble bursts, and we've got to find,
Mhm.
you know,
It's a 5-year cycle.
424,000 for, I mean, that's 2 years, but 212,000
Right.
a year in our general budget. Like some of these other things will go away, but I think that's not gonna go away, so.
Mhm.
And I'm not at all insulting you guys for putting it in
No.
there, because you're trying to find money anywhere, but I just think from a Board of Ed standpoint, which is kind of, I'll say different than this administration, is this is going to run out, and we're gonna have to find this money
Mhm.
on top of, so I don't know, you know, the board wants to go all in, or considering half and half or something.
Well, yeah, because, you know, I agree with your thinking on that, because this is something that we're gonna need for a long time, right? And maybe slowly bringing them into the general budget, one or two at a time might be the way to go. So if we got this for 2 years, maybe that's a thought. However, you know, the central office wants to do that. They can fit them in, whatever it looks like, maybe slowly over the next couple of years into the budget. So we're not slammed 2 years from now with $212,000.
Well, I think it would be us, so, right, so.
Well, I
we're
know, but I mean,
Preparing next year's budget now, and then we would only have 1 year after that.
but then what are you gonna take out, or are you just gonna increase, you know, increase the expenses of the budget? So that's the question.
I think that was my same. I thought when we talked last, like a few of like the Spanish teacher, like the things that we deemed as part of general budget and not really essential to closing the gap, we're gonna be, should come out of general budget, or should go into general budget versus
Jason first, or Jason's been.
Go ahead, Jason.
I was gonna be saying something along the same vein when we got to the 2022 discussion, is that what in all of these temporary grants are we eventually going to have to roll into general budget? And what about it, about what is that total that we're looking at? And, you know, some of these positions that, you know, we're very lucky right now to be getting these grants due to the situation that we're in. But are all these positions going to go away as soon as all of these opportunities are no longer with us? And how is that going to affect our budget? So I had the same question and concern. I've been kind of mulling all this over, trying to keep my head above water with teaching, and hadn't had a chance to really look through the budget. But this was something that kind of kept coming to my mind, and I decided I needed to mention.
Go ahead, Gary.
I'm gonna echo what Jason said and Fiona and Nikki, but even more. I said this last time, but you know, we have other things that we have to, and I'm not blaming you for the budget. I mean, obviously you want to do the best you could, but this year is the 1 year. I mean, it's a typical 5-year cycle, but we've got social workers that were responsible for this. And I spent some time on the phone with Ryan talking about why the city got rid of its social services group and why we don't have a social services group. I mean, we're going to have hundreds of thousands of dollars being imposed on our education budget over the next 5 years. Just equity and inclusion alone. We need to plan for that. And I think that this might be the year, because it's not going to go down. We know it's not going to go down. Never mind the 25 credits and all the state mandates required. I don't know if we don't start this year with seeking the money to get, and we did tell the Board of Finance last year and the year before that we needed to start moving these people over to the regular budget. And it was very clear. And I think with my opinion, with Laura's help in keeping the promise on that side of the ledger, that it would be the year to show them that the investment has to be made to continue making some progress. And it's not our fault that the city doesn't have a social services agency. I mean, we are becoming, our Board of Education has become the social services agency for the city. I mean, there is no social worker employed by the city. There's no psychiatrist, there's no psychologist, there's no nothing. So it all falls on the Board of Ed, but I don't know that we've really recognized that yet as a pretty big number. I've looked at other districts. I mean, some have almost in the millions of money dedicated to those line items. And I don't know how we can ever overcome it if we don't start seeking those funds now. It's just going to be teachers that we have to either reassign or lay off to meet some of the state mandates. Because we asked for 1.5%, 2%, and we're barely covering our costs. How do we make up for it later? And I don't want it to be alliance funds, because then we can't get it back later. I mean, nobody wants it to be alliance funds if we don't have to, but and even ELL, I mean, I'm looking at the numbers, and you know, the investment in ELL, I would ask Laura, let me get to the 2021. I was going to wait till 2021, but they all brought 21, 22. But it's a huge number. It really is. And we can't keep cutting, you know, courses or teachers. You know, we have to have, in my opinion, a very serious discussion with the city about how schools, Board of Education has picked up the city's mandate. I mean, Emily Barbera was the last social services director, and that was before Ryan Bingham. That's how long it's been. And they rely on the shelters to fix the problem. They don't even address the problem, as we all know. So anyway, I think we need to address these things in this budget. But we can talk about that in 21, 22 as well.
Ed, do you have anything?
No, I mean, I feel generally similarly, as I've been saying for the last few budget cycles. You know, it's not our responsibility to predict the city's availability of funds. It's our responsibility to tell them what we need. And if some of these things are going to be long-term needs, I agree that we ought to put them in our general budget request and, you know, work within that framework to see what we can get for it. Because a lot of this stuff is a long-term need. And I think that's important, because otherwise we'll find ourselves, you know, 2 or 3 years from now trying to figure out how to pay somebody who we absolutely can't afford to lose. And I'd rather kind of do that work now, at least start it, than be in that position of desperation in a few years.
Can I just ask a general question about Alliance?
Well, this is not Alliance.
Oh, sorry.
This is
Yes,
SR2.
yes,
I know,
it's true.
sorry.
It kind of got into that.
I know, yeah, okay.
Yeah, this is actually the
Okay.
SR2, not the Alliance.
Oh, wait,
Yeah, but it's similar though.
okay.
So, so, with that said, so you have to have it in by April 19th now?
Mhm.
Okay, all right. And you can always amend it, correct?
Yeah, we can. I'm hoping, though, that we can get it firmed up because it's been so messy and because some of this money we could use right away.
Well, I
And
think,
so,
I think that's where people are going with it,
Yeah.
that what you definitely could use right away, that you're gonna use now and definitely on a temporary basis, definitely put in there,
Right.
something for the next year or two.
Mhm.
Put that in here, and anything that's gonna be long-term, that you're projecting long-term, put into general budget. Does that make sense?
yeah, I think it would help. I mean,
I have just a suggestion.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the IT techs and the yellow ones are for 22, 23.
For 2 years.
mhm,
Yeah.
right.
So not, so is it next year and the
Mhm.
following?
Yes.
Correct.
So the Spanish grade 5 or 6 through 8 and the music grade 4 through 5, that's just 1 year or 2 years?
Well, I said when I presented this, I will, I'm assuming, be knocking on your door next year saying, I'm gonna need that Spanish teacher and that music teacher as well. And they would just get added to next year's budget.
So my thought, and this is just my only thought, is, and I appreciate you guys trying to save money. I'm just concerned about us, again, short-sighting our budget. If we were to move Spanish and music into general budget, and then could we possibly use those funds for additional remedial support for the
Well,
next 2 years?
yeah, we were gonna, after this, we were also going to talk about the ELL proposal, which is significant, because that was a question that was
Yeah.
raised. HR needs and restructuring, because that was mentioned, so Kim has some information on that. Social workers, we had been talking about SEL and the need for social emotional attendance, disconnected students, and then I just have that information on enrollment. if you want to.
So I have an idea. It sounds like we should table this until we get the rest of that information, and then we'll come back to this later in the meeting,
Sure.
okay? So that's my suggestion. You okay with it?
Yeah.
Okay. Ed, you okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna come back to it. We're not leaving it, we're just gonna put it aside until we get the rest of the information. Thank you. Okay, American Rescue Act?
So I just was going
Oh,
to.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, just to
Okay.
mention, there's nothing to hand out because we don't have anything firm yet, but it's 6.1 million that's coming to the district. And they say these amounts are approximate until we give you the final, and there's no application yet, there's no clarification of parameters, there's no due date yet, but just
So-
letting you know. So that grant or that pot of money is really going to be for next year. That's not to
right.
delve into, like, we're having a crisis now, so like ESSER is. But by the time they get that worked out, if this was this confusing and it was
Yeah,
this
yeah.
amount, I think this is going to be even
Yeah.
more so. So
And they also don't have like a time frame, right? I
Not
heard-
yet.
I heard possibly like 5 years or something, you had to use the money, but there's nothing out there.
I think they are going to want us to unfortunately use it within the same 2-year period.
2 years?
Yeah,
Okay.
which is the 2023. So yes, so then we will look at those parameters. That's what I've heard most recently as last Thursday.
Okay.
So yeah,
Alright.
it's going to be interesting how to break this all down. But certainly we have needs and we're very, very grateful for the funding. Equally as important, our city is receiving 3.3 million as part of this American Rescue Plan Act. That was the statement that we got from John Larson's office. So he gave us the update.
Okay.
So that's about all I can share right now. I promise to share more. I'm hoping that I have more information this week, and then we'll go from there.
Great, thank you. Budget 2021-22, and I think that's where we're gonna talk about the new stuff, right?
Yes. So Ed, you want to give them the updated good news?
Okay.
We're at 1.4%, right?
Right now, we're at, this is only the operating budget.
Okay.
We're at 1.41%, or $1,076,191 increase.
Okay.
So we're working our way down. And mostly that was because of precision control. We were just cleaning up the system.
Okay.
We had a few duplicates here and there and had to clean it out. Replacements versus actual.
And then we did
opens.
add the SRO
Yep,
officer in there.
Okay.
a portion, yeah,
Portion
the
of
the part-time piece.
Also, I just want to, we had a question about statistics for eligibility of students for, so right now, as of last month, 62.71% are free or reduced lunch children.
Mhm.
Remember, everybody gets a free lunch. And these are families receiving benefits from the state,
Mhm.
either from SNAP, Medicaid, temporary financial assistance, or declared as homeless. So they take care of that.
Right.
And that's about 62%, 62.71%.
I thought it was.
So I just
higher.
wanted to get it.
But that's this
Still
month
That's
as
this
compared to
month, you know,
October
so-
1.
So there, I know there was a question, I didn't have it on top of my head, so I just want
Yeah.
to have the office do that.
Thank you. So that 1.41%, is that including what you're gonna talk about with the EL stuff?
Yeah, so let me go
Well, there's
back,
nothing
sorry.
in here yet with that.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying.
That's what
So
he's
it doesn't
asking.
include-
Right, so then
include it.
these
It
are
doesn't
the other
include
needs
that.
that we've
Yep.
talked about, and this is just a quickie little summary on it, just so you have a cheat sheet to look at while we're talking about it.
We need one for
They're
John.
coming.
John.
Yeah.
I just-
You need
Okay,
one.
now we got-
Thank you.
We got plenty here.
So the, I can, want me to go send it? Sorry, we have,
You can
there's
take this.
extras
She'll
somewhere.
bring
Oh,
mine
here they are.
back. She's just.
No, no,
That's okay, that's okay.
So, so we had taught, as I mentioned before, a couple of different issues came up for folks who are on the line. ELL as an issue, HR needs some restructuring, recruitment, and those pieces, social workers and social emotional issues. And then I'll just share enrollment numbers, which Nikki had asked for previously. So Sue's going to give you a summary of her meeting, but what we're proposing and what everybody, and you'll see it in just a second. Can you send it to Marissa too, Ally? I'm sorry. So after you hear what Sue has to say, just in terms of our numbers, we are really concerned about our EL population. Right now, Laura shared at our last meeting that our special ed population is down to 14%, which is great. Our ELs are at 11%. So they are in significant need, as you saw at our last meeting in terms of achievement data. So what we are proposing is one EL teacher for each school, which would be 6 positions, tutors at the high school, which I mentioned before, one tutor for each content area. Right now we have 1 in math. We need 1 for social studies, English, and science. Para support, adding 1 for each school. Torrington, a bilingual teacher full-time from that 0.6. And the coordinator position that I had spoken with you about previously. And here's a description of that coordinator position. Kim, can you just send that? Oh, maybe not. Fort Valley.
I did.
Oh, you did, got it. Yay, thank
I
you.
sent it to her before when I-
Perfect. Does everybody have one? So I'm gonna let Sue jump in here and then we'll talk more about the position that you have in front of you. Do you want to talk a little bit about
Which one?
It's the one I scanned from the printer.
this one?
Yeah.
Just start with this one though, because
Oh, okay.
Sue's you're good. You're perfect for where you are.
Okay, good.
Okay,
You-
sure. So I had the,
Putting that back up?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm lost.
Sorry.
yeah, in just a minute, and then you're gonna end up having to put these things that I signed. I had I think I told you at our last
We did
meeting, I
have a
was
meeting.
actually had a meeting on the calendar to meet with the EL teachers. So I met with them last Wednesday. We had a great meeting. They're such a hardworking group of people, and we had a conversation, a lengthy conversation about the struggles that they're experiencing. And yes, their struggles have certainly been amplified because of COVID, as everyone's have. But really, when we really dug down into the situation, it's been something that I think has been breaking down in our district for a number of years. And they reminded me that, you know, long before I came to central office, they did have someone as a supervisor or coordinator or director, I'm not sure what the title was, but somebody who was dedicated, a dedicated go-to person, a dedicated point person to advocate for them, to assist with professional development for this very, you know, very specified type of work, very specialized. So we talked about that. This goes back to like 2005 or even earlier. You know, the people who perhaps filled those positions went, and the positions went along with them. They were just never backfilled. So, you know, not just the coordinator, but also people in the buildings. You know, they had support positions in the buildings, and when those folks retired, because of budget along the way, those positions were just never filled. And it's really, as you saw, the EL data, the student assessment data, it's really, it's very obvious. It's very evident that we have to do something. I just did a quick count. We have, as of right now, we have 381 students identified, and we have 10 teachers. So, you know, just really quickly, that's 38 students, and it's a very rough formula because, you know, we're looking per school, and it's not a perfect science, but that's an enormous number of children for one teacher to have to be responsible for and to have to see on a daily basis. And because we are so lean in our staffing, we simply don't have the staff to cope with the demand, is how it was put to me right now. They went through a multi-year professional development experience about 2 years, right before COVID had ended. And one of the core components of that, and they ended up developing a beautiful core value statement, was that, you know, our EL teachers would really be, in addition to teachers of children, they would become resources to general ed teachers so that they could mentor these folks, they could provide modeling for how to replicate just good best practices in the gen ed setting, so that our English learners received this type of instruction throughout the day. That simply can't happen right now because these folks don't have the time to get into every room. They're too busy pulling kids out and just trying to give them what they need to acquire language skills. One of the teachers, you know, was very quick to explain to me that what most of our kids need right now is not an extension of what's happening in the gen ed classroom. It's something different that they need in order to access what's happening in the gen ed classroom. And we just don't have enough people to make it happen. So what I just passed out is something that each school put together, starting with the elementary schools, so the 2 primary schools, and then you'll see the 2 intermediate schools and the middle and high school. It's just very basic, but it kind of gives you a sense how many students we have. So the last data that we have, hang on one second, the last data that we have, with the exception of the high school, they were able to pull their scores because they're done testing, but we had to rely on 1920 loss scores to do this. What I really wanted to demonstrate is that our kids who are identified as English language learners are all along the continuum. So at every single point along the continuum, which makes it even more challenging with such a very lean staff to be able to provide what these kids need. Sorry, Gary.
You just answered. I wasn't sure if it was, these are the kids that don't speak English. ELL is how I understood that. You had ELL.
Some,
No.
so this includes our newcomers. Is that what you're asking?
No, I mean, we have kids who speak English but still get EL.
Correct.
That's
Well, they-
ELL,
Correct.
right?
If you look, so what
They
I,
all do, unless you have a level, unless you test out a level 5, you all get at least the last length tested, correct?
correct. And many of our children who have scored like a 4
Mhm.
are close to a 5. We're still monitoring because
Right.
that's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Just for your information, the last page of the packet gives you a definition of what each loss band is, just so
Okay.
that you have
Right.
a better understanding. But,
Yeah.
so I really just wanted to demonstrate. So yes, this includes, Gary,
Yeah.
okay? Some children who don't know a word of English right now. And one of
That
the,
would be one.
one of the teachers actually said to me, Sue, you have to understand what we're dealing with. It's almost like at the college level, a rolling admissions process. Because there are children coming every single day and they come with a wide variety of need.
Yeah,
So,
no, I understand. I've seen this. from-
no, I thought you had your hand up,
No.
sorry.
Oh,
I mean,
Yeah, somebody is with him. That's not me.
Go ahead, Jess.
Jess.
I don't think we got that whole thing emailed. I think it was just one sheet.
Oh, she got the first page you got.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, I can resend it in just a minute. But I'm sorry, I'll have to.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't looking at the wrong thing. But
Yeah,
I don't think we
Yeah,
got it.
no, I'll send it in a minute. So I don't know if you have specific questions. I mean, ideally, what we'd love to see, and this also was part of the conversation, and you know, this may not be for here and now, but we'd love to see us being able to establish a welcome center in the district for families who are English learners. And you know, we'd love to be able to have folks who are available and accessible in every school office so that when people come in to register their children, there's someone there who can welcome them and help them and facilitate that whole process. So having a coordinator or a point person would allow some of that to happen.
I mean, just so you know, the city used, again, we'll go back years, but I was talking to Dina Calabrese yesterday. And when she came over, her parents came over, the city had the availability for parents and the families to actually learn the language. She learned in kindergarten, she said it was easy for her, but there was actually a city language class that people could go to. The city funded it and families, her parents learned it through a city funded English, not through the high school because that we have a GED program, but strictly just like the city of New York City. This might be 17 languages, but they're learning English. We don't have it anymore, so thus this is something else that's falling on education's shoulders. It's one more thing that we're not picking up. And I think we should. I'm not blaming you. I mean, these are things that I think the cities, maybe not just Torrington, but maybe many cities are just, they take it out of their budget, as I was told by Ryan. We just got rid of the department and we expected other agencies to take over and nobody's taking over.
Ed
So-
Advance does offer an
Yeah.
adult language
The
class.
adult-
That's,
adult
and that's a
education.
robust program where
Yeah.
they run several different sections.
Yeah.
Just for adults, but
But-
you're right,
right.
for the
Yeah.
kids, yep,
For
just
everybody.
trying to separate that out. But Sue was just talking about like a welcoming center, and we do have translators at each of the buildings, except right now, we don't have them at Southwest and Vogel because the translator left, unfortunately. It would be nice to have translators at each of the schools, and right now, we don't have them full-time, so it'd be great to have them full-time. And also, to make sure that we have tutors that have the same hours that the kids have so that they are there.
Because
so
what
that
ends up
mimics that.
happening too, sorry to interrupt, but just, I'm gonna forget this. What ends up happening because, you know, our translators have left for, you know, another district or moved out of town or something, is that our teachers, who we don't have enough of right now, will get pulled to go into the office to help with translation. And, you know, so it's just, and I mean, Kim will tell you that it's gonna be a challenge to find people because everybody
Yeah, right.
is looking, but we have to really make it appealing.
You mentioned registration. Is registration still done at each site? Or is it done district-wide?
We have online
Right.
registration.
Okay.
And then at each site, if they are coming to the building, which as often happens, then someone can sit with them. And we want to make sure that we have someone who speaks Spanish. We do have also other families who
Because,
need
yeah,
other
some
support,
districts
so
have
we
like
try and
one
find
central registration point, which then would reduce the need for the amount of those people that are hard to find. So if you had one, you can always staff it with someone that has a, bilingual person type of thing.
Sure.
I know,
Yes.
just throwing
And
it
I-
out there that that's what some districts do. They have one central registration site, a physical site.
Which would be lovely. I think that's
Yeah.
similar to what Sue's saying in terms of the welcoming center, and we'd certainly need a translator there. The families come and have their questions and want to know about their students and a
Right,
variety of
right,
different things, just like English-speaking parents. So that's why the translators at each site as well, because it's not just for registration.
Jason, go ahead.
I just want to say how invaluable the translators are on the special ed side, because not only are they the families or the students struggling with learning the language, but those translators have been pivotal in IEPs and PPTs, sitting in and helping us to make sure that those families understand what the program is that their child is receiving. We don't translate documents, and I don't know if that's required by, necessarily entire IEPs, and I don't know if that's required by federal law, but it's something that I've always felt should be done, is that the IEP may be translated into the native language. And I know there's companies out there that do that. But even like our educational or our evaluation reports, we're limited in what we can do for getting students or the families those language needs.
Gary, and then
So
Nikki.
you mentioned online. I think that we could be more productive if it wasn't online, because if I'm a first generation coming from anywhere, doing anything online can never get the message across like being in person. I don't think, and Fiona's brought it up before, we have a survey out there. Are you, is it more than one person or one person in your household that only speaks Spanish? Yes, they get classified. Whereas having somebody come in and be able to explain to the parents, speaking their language, of course, I think would make it much more efficient. We might get kids out of there faster. That you might be able to explain to the parents how the kids can move faster. Online isn't going to give the parents, I don't personally think, it's not your fault. It's a funding issue.
No, let me just clarify. 'Cause when we were thinking of doing online, we do the online, that's for the English speakers. And so when we
Oh, that's
have
for
to
the
have
English speakers.
registration, right,
Oh, okay,
for our
I'm sorry.
folks. And we wanted to have a welcoming center where
Correct, I'm
everybody
agreeing with you,
could
is what I'm
come.
saying.
And then you have the translation. So I'm sorry if I wasn't clear in terms of that. Yes, it would be impossible for them to know it, to navigate all of
Right.
that. So it's really important that we establish that rapport and that relationship.
So when this may involve Laura, but I don't know who, I know it goes to your department. So, but in order to not sell this, because this isn't a sell job, this is a need. If whoever's going to put this together can put the numbers together so the city can see that over time, if we can provide better services and get the kids through the system faster, then in the end, we will save money and we'll produce much more productive children.
So to your point, right, so one of the real challenges that these teachers face every day is that as soon as a newcomer arrives in the building, that it's almost like triage in an ER, the newcomer gets the
All the
bulk of the
attention.
services and all the attention, right? So it's no surprise that our scores are
I
where they
agree.
are, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
So yes, I believe if we had a staffing model that would support this, then our kids would go right
I mean,
through.
just as we did with special ed a couple
Correct.
years ago,
Mhm.
Right.
explain it, or
Right.
allocate our resources that we're saving in special
Right.
ed toward another need, which is only going to be greater, you know, as we become closer to good Danbury in terms of our Spanish speaking population, or Portuguese, or whatever it ends up being, but
Well, you heard Sue at the beginning. I mean, we have 14% in special ed right now and 11% in EL. I
Right,
mean, that's really
right.
not all that statistically significant, right?
I agree. I think that's why I believe we should be adding money and clearly spelling out to the city that the city doesn't provide the resources to accommodate, and the state's demanding it. And it's just another part of the education process that was not considered 20 years ago, or 5 years ago, maybe even 2 years ago.
Right, and I
That's
think with the COVID, that adds this extra
Yeah, it's
wrinkle,
another-
right? So then it brings out all of those discrepancies or those gaps
Bless you.
even further.
But we
Well,
saw
and I
this before COVID.
Yes, oh, absolutely.
Nikki was next.
Do we know what the financial ask is?
Yeah.
So if you're looking at the ELL, you have to figure for those 6 positions, we do 58,697.
Yeah.
Per teacher. So
And that's 6 new.
that's 6 new teachers, right?
6 new teachers, and then the tutors.
And then the tutors, if we're talking 6.5 hours.
What do
And
we
then,
figure a tutor's about
it's-
$37,000 a year.
well, it's $32 an hour
Yeah, I think I
Right,
figured out
Kim?
about 37,000 a year. We do.
times 3.
Was it for 7 times?
And then para support, Kim, what number should we use? 20,
I think it's about 20,000, Ed, does that sound right?
About 22,
22?
22 for a pair.
Times 6, right?
right.
6 of them, yes.
And then the bilingual, how do you want to do that? At the 0.4 of the 58?
No, I don't.
No,
You
she's
wanna do
making
it at-
Yeah, I don't have that
40,000
person's
now.
salary.
Right, but I don't know if that particular
Person
person
would be,
would
yeah.
be willing to do the 0.4, so.
So you just gotta judge it on the 58,000.
Right, I think that's probably
So then
the,
you just say it's a full-time position at 58,000.
Not just do the 23,000 that's incremental.
Well, I'm just saying that you go by the, because you go by the.
If it's only
58,000.
4
Yeah.
right, it's only a
Yeah.
0.4,
So it's
correct?
23,000,
Right, oh, yeah, okay.
478.
Yeah, because that would be with a
Yeah.
additional, right?
Okay, and then the coordinator would probably be, has to be somebody with more experience.
Mhm.
So
Probably
are you
gonna be
thinking
up in
like
the 80s.
80,000?
Yeah, I would
Well,
say.
yeah, because also looking at the,
The
preferably
requirements.
092, I mean, yeah, you're talking, you know, at least 75, 80,000.
So what is that, like 700,000
Yeah.
or so?
So far. We have social workers down below, don't we?
Yeah, we didn't even get to the other
Right.
portions, yeah.
Yeah,
Be a million bucks.
So do you want us to move to the HR piece of it, or any more questions on that?
So do we need to like discuss this to make the decision whether we're,
well, I don't think this is the whole package yet.
okay,
Right.
so let's do
Because
the
I
whole
think
package
we're
and
also
then
looking
figure
at
out
social
which one.
workers down there, right?
Yeah,
Once-
it might
yeah.
be easier
Okay.
to
To
just,
just do
yeah,
the whole package.
Okay.
right.
Yeah, so you want to talk about the way this reads is you're up.
I'll move up to the table.
HRD is restructuring.
Yep. Okay, so I'm gonna pass this out. And so,
Thank you.
and thinking about some of the information that Gary had asked about when he brought up the recruitment budget and the $15,000 recruitment budget and whether or not that was enough for our needs for
That's the
HR.
HR generalist.
Did you pass that down?
Thought I did. I passed it down. I don't think I kept one.
Oh, do you need,
Oh, I do. I have
oh,
it right
do you
here.
need more?
Okay, good. Yeah, you have enough? I
Yeah.
need 12.
I have extra.
You just scan
Is
it
he
for
here?
them.
So as I said during that meeting,
Billy,
the
this is one.
15,000, am I good? I'm sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
There you go.
The $15,000 budget, I feel like is enough for the recruitment expenses. But really where our need is in HR is we need another person. There is a lot of work for us to do. We have incrementally over the last 3 years expanded our staff. We've increased the special ed staff. We've increased our intervention staff. We've continually increased our number of employees in this district, yet we still only have 2 people in my office doing that work. So it would allow this person, an HR generalist, to do some of that significant targeted recruitment efforts that Gary was talking about and really be able to do that outreach and really be able to go to the universities, work with our partners, really connect and do that one-on-one personal recruitment efforts, but also allow us to be able to kind of split up some of the other pieces of the work, including some of the labor relations work and the other parts of those the functions within our office.
That makes sense to me.
Because currently there's only Kim and Lisa in
Me and
that
Lisa.
department.
So I do everything and Lisa does all my paperwork.
That's a lot of work for how many employees?
Almost 800, 780 something, including the part-time people.
Geez, I didn't realize that.
And it's a secretary.
So, and she's phenomenal.
Yeah, no,
Wonderful
no.
and phenomenal, and I love her, and
Yeah.
she's amazing, but, it's a lot of work. I do a lot of, I connect with each and every building and each and every principal and each and every employee, and, and I try really hard to be available for everyone. So having a person to rely on to help do some of that work would certainly help.
How much do you think that is?
Probably,
Gotta be what it is.
yeah, probably about the $75,000 range. If you look at what an HR generalist in Litchfield County runs for an average and what our current employees make, looking at the secretarial bargaining unit,
Mhm.
we'd be looking at 75,000.
Another question. Given that a lot of our hiring needs with the CARES Act could be done sooner than potentially this position would come into play, is this a position that you think needs to be on staff or something that can be outsourced, especially with the target on recruitment?
I prefer it to be on staff. I think especially because it would be dealing with a lot of highly confidential information. So I think having that person be our employee makes the most sense.
Yeah, I see, Jess.
Yes.
I just want to ask a question off of what Mickey said. Is that, I mean, I'm not in the human resource world, but is that something that some companies do? Is they outsource something like that?
Yeah, there are organizations that do it. You probably heard it on the radio, Bamboo HR and all those. There's a lot of companies that do
Local, yeah.
outsource that.
But that might be just for,
It's usually for small businesses.
Okay, all
It's
right.
usually small
right.
businesses that would do it. Large organizations don't
Okay.
tend to outsource it.
I didn't know if it was an option. Go ahead, Jess.
So like in other districts, what do their HR departments look like?
Districts our size typically have 4 people.
Okay.
Because they would have someone doing recruitment, someone that does, labor relations, somebody that's in the director level position, and then somebody that does the secretarial.
We used to have 3 people in that department.
and it's become increasingly complicated.
Yeah, more and
Many
more
districts
demands
do
in
an
terms of
HR business
background
partner
checks and
model
things.
where they would have one person at the director level, and then they might have 2 people at like a coordinator level that would split the district, the schools in half. So one might handle the secondary and one might handle the elementary, and they would kind of meet all of their needs from that, soup to nuts HR model. That's the model we had in Hartford, but much larger department and, but we had 6 staffing specialists for 50 schools. And each staffing specialist had a cohort of 6 schools or so that they would handle all of those schools' HR needs, handle their hiring, handle their labor relations, everything they need. So a lot of school districts now are following the HR business partner model.
Can you just give an example of the background checks that became required over the last few years? that are
Sure, yeah, so-
expensive? Just as an example. 'cause I think
Yeah,
that's a
so
good
the
one.
background checks,
Change
every
it again.
every single
So
employee,
intense.
when they're onboarded, they have to agree to an FBI fingerprint criminal background check, and that paperwork comes back to our office, and we have to track that and keep track of that. In addition to that, each one of them has to complete, it's Public Act 1667. And so for every single organization where the employee has worked, where they've had contact with children within the last 20 years, that particular, we have to send out that background check form to every one of their organizations that they worked at. And I will give you an example. Person that we onboarded this week had 9 organizations that they worked at in the last 20 years. So Lisa now has to take that information and has to translate that into connecting with each of those 9 separate organizations and track the compliance for that to come back. And we have to do that for each and every employee that we hire.
It's just become very.
And then there's the
labor-intensive.
DCF background check. So we have to fill out the DCF background check. That has to be sent to DCF. We have to wait for that to come back and make sure we meet compliance on all of that. And in addition to that, we have the training needs. So we have to make sure that each person does the DCF mandated reporter training. And we also have to make sure that each person, when they're out within 6 months of being hired, now does the 2-hour CHRO sexual harassment training based on the Time's Up Act that just happened in 2019.
And fingerprinting.
Yep, that was the
That's
first thing I
another
said. Yep,
one.
fingerprinting, we send them to Ed Advance, and then we have to track the return of those background checks
And for volunteers too.
Right.
for volunteers.
And for
too.
the
Yeah.
storage for all of that, you have to have separate storage
do.
for each little component.
Mhm.
It's surmountable, the paperwork
Yes.
that has to be done for hiring one person.
And in my thought, this HR generalist would also be somebody that would be able to pull together our maintenance of our leave requests, right? Because right now it's kind of done piecemeal within the district. So Kathy does pieces of it, Amanda does pieces of it, Lisa Schimmels does pieces of it. So everybody's kind of doing a little piece of it. We could bring that into one place where it would be kind of a one-stop shop for everybody that could kind of really go to that one person who would be the expert in the district. Which would make it better for our employees.
I think it's needed. I don't know how you did it. I didn't realize you only had 2 people, one secretary. I don't know how you did it. Nor so do I think people should work 24 hours a day to keep up.
Well, then there's that.
Well,
And you have to keep going after the people because they don't send back the form, and you have to keep calling and
Yeah.
documenting.
You have to
and-
do 3 good faith efforts
Yep.
to get that back, and you have to show
Yep.
evidence that you've documented those 3
Yep.
good faith efforts.
Yep.
So what next?
Plus all
To
the
the-
union stuff.
Right.
Besides that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the negotiations and everything.
Thank you. All right,
So-
any questions? Any other questions, I should say? No, everybody's good. Mr. Corey, you all set?
Yeah, no, I've been in a position where I desperately needed somebody else to come on board to share the work, and I got to tell you, I didn't get that person, and 3 months later I quit. So I get it, and I'm all in favor of adding an HR specialist. I didn't realize that there were only 2 of you doing this work, so I think that that's the least we can do is add a position to make that workload more manageable and allow you to do the things you need to do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Number 3.
Right, and so then the social work,
workers.
yep, thank you, Armand. So we've been talking a lot about the needs, just in terms of the social emotional needs, our students who have been disconnected, attendance issues, home visits that are going on, family support. This has been a really difficult time. And so to really be able, particularly at the secondary level, where things get very complex, we may have students who are homeless, or even if they've left their home and don't feel safe there, or just a variety of different things for our middle school and especially our high school students. To have an extra social worker, especially during this time, I think is very important.
And what is the estimated cost for those two positions, right?
You want to say 75?
I was gonna say.
About 150?
Yeah, 75 is probably good bet.
Yeah, because
They have the,
75,
they
they
have
have
that
the-
Yes.
the-
6th-year degree that is a little bit higher, so they're usually on that.
The
They're not on
six-
level 2, they're on level 3 or level 4.
They have the 60 credit masters.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, Nikki.
Did we have any social worker increase in the like CARES Act?
We did, so going back to the CARES Act, or the ESSER 2, right?
Yeah.
This
That's
one?
right.
Okay.
That one. Yep.
Just so we're all
Yeah.
using the same
ESSER.
terminology.
That's a-
So we have a BCBA for grades 6 through 12, but that is predominantly for the behaviors that are going on in the school and going into the classroom to help teachers deal with the behaviors. Laura, you can certainly jump in terms of the BCBA responsibilities, but it's different.
Yes, it's also, remember, we are having our population changing a little bit in the middle school. We're needing to create a voices program. And BCBAs are a very large part of programming for children with autism. So we really need that support. We're also increasing our RBTs, which is a great thing, but they need to be supervised by a BCBA as well.
So that's very different than social worker, hands-on with the student, with the family, trying to get them help, trying to develop a different plan for them so they can get them to school or address what their needs are, crisis intervention kind of thing.
Right, for all kids or
Fiona?
anyone who needs it.
So I just think we have such a high percentage of kids with what I'm gonna call complex home lives,
Mhm.
that what a social worker traditionally would be doing was helping kids with the daily things that go on for that age.
Yeah.
But ours are constantly doing massive crisis management.
Mhm.
So then I think some of that other stuff spills into the guidance departments, into the classrooms, into the teachers,
Yeah.
because we physically don't have enough people to deal with these and know where, we have community partners we're working with, but they're not in the school every day, all day.
Mhm.
So I think if you staff it appropriately, our guidance department would have more free time to work on guidance related things. So, I'm not saying it's anyone's fault, it's just everyone's chipping in, but we're losing sight of what we're supposed to be doing, everybody.
Well, just to add to that, somebody today on the phone, I was talking about not having social workers, and they said to me, well, you have guidance counselors, why don't you let them do it? And I said, that's not what their job is.
Well,
They're not there to be social workers, otherwise they're not giving guidance. And, well, that's true, but you have to deal with what you have. I said, well, we've been dealing with it for 20 years and it's not working.
Right, and the guidance we really want is, where do you want to go after
Right.
high school? Where do you want to be? What's your
Right.
plan?
No,
Making sure that
absolutely.
you're getting your credits.
That's what I thought
Applying to
guidance was.
college.
I didn't
It's
realize
supposed
it's
military.
It's supposed to be, right?
Yes.
Well, it's
Oh, yeah.
changed though. It's changed though. They're actually school counselors now. They're not guidance counselors anymore. And they do encompass the social emotional piece also. I just want to let you know that
Well, they don't have to though.
I just want to let you know they're school counselors now, and what their part of what their charge is to deal with the emotional stuff also. I'm just letting you know that that's how it's gone the last like maybe 5 or 6
So
years.
some schools have morphed into that,
So, yeah,
some
because
requirements.
they're called school counselors now, they're not guidance counselors. Just want to let you know.
I'd
So-
like to just get back to a place where our
Yeah.
guidance is able to actually work with students and families on their path, whether they're
I was
going
gonna say
to
we have a
college,
pathway
whether they're
program,
going to
Right.
career,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Mhm.
Because even the nurse's office, anyone go to the middle school nurse's office, you have kids that have
Mhm.
medical issues, but they end up in the nurse's office all the time with their emotional issues, so that kids with medical issues are waiting.
Mhm.
I'm not saying life-threatening medical issues, but,
Mhm.
just like a diabetic who needs to go in and check their finger.
Mhm.
But there's all these other kids who have so many other issues.
No, I agree. I work in a school that very, very similar. See that all day.
How many do we currently have at the high school?
What, counselors?
Yeah, or sorry, social workers,
Oh, 2, right?
Yeah.
2.
2 currently, so this would make it 3.
Two
At
of
both.
Yep.
The high school.
And how many at the middle school? Same, 2?
Three.
At the high, at the middle school.
Are you including the social worker that is working full remote? That would be 1, 2, yeah, 3. That includes the full remote one, correct?
Yeah, 3, you said, right?
I'm sorry,
think
Jason,
it's
what did
three.
you say?
At the middle school, there's 3 in building, correct? And then 1 doing full remote?
Yes.
I'm trying to put everybody in place in my head.
There's 2.
No, I think there's.
It's 3 total.
2 in the building.
2 in
and
the
1
middle
remote.
school.
I think
2 in the
that's
building,
covering
right, okay.
In the building, so I think there's 3
Oh.
in the building.
And 1
Okay.
contracted.
So,
So I think
right, so
there's
we have
3
a,
positions
right.
at the
But 2
building
are,
that
2
are
are,
in the budget.
Yeah.
The person
third one
that's
is,
remote, covering remote students, we
Yeah.
have somebody covering that person in the building so that there's coverage in the building.
Yeah.
Right, as a contracted.
Yeah.
Okay.
correct,
Yes.
right.
Non-COVID times, we have 3.
No, yeah,
Right, we have
3
3,
budgeted
right.
positions.
That's non-COVID,
Yeah.
we have 3, okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep, confusing.
Okay, all right. So that would be about $1 million right there. With all those positions.
923,
Yeah. About $1 million.
660. It would go up, the budget would go up to 2.61.
To 2.61?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
So as a reminder, before we get on the board,
Sorry, Ed.
Excuse me.
Sorry, what's the total?
Addition is 923,660. Add that to what we have, the new increase would be 1,999,851, or 2.61%.
so
Thank you, sorry.
if you go back in time, when we, as a board and as a city, they chipped away at what they didn't want to fund. And every year we ended up with no sped department, to speak of, no administration. My estimate was about $30 million of money wasted over about 14 years because we were over-identifying. Forget not having administration, we just over-identified. And we can probably apply that to any other department if we really wanted to go back and do an analysis. By spending the money, we're actually saving money. I personally think we can also do that here. I mean, I don't know how we provide and meet the requirements for the state for the equity and inclusion. Even possibly come close to meeting it with what I've been reading about the demands will be without having the staff available. Otherwise, we're going to fail every year. Or we'll have a sheet of paper that tells everybody what we plan on doing, but we don't do anything. And then it falls on us later to catch up. So I don't know how I'm not saying it's great that we have to do all these things for the state or the city. It falls on our shoulders, but we have to do it. We have to do it. You
And
know?
they need to know.
Right. And for the other 80% of the kids that need to continue to get that great education we're promising, we also have to make sure we don't shortchange them. And not fund the tag program and not fund all the things we need to fund. As best we can.
So going back to, I think, the ESSER 2 funds, right? So now we can go back. So now we
Well,
have.
can we hear about enrollment
what's
Oh,
that?
did you want to just see that?
before we,
Oh,
is that
yeah.
okay?
Sure. So. let me just do a couple here.
Thank you.
And I made copies of the this other enrollment sheet too, because you already have this one. It's in the PowerPoint, but it's nice to have it separate.
Oh, thank you.
Because I think it tells the story, and you see some of that on this sheet. So if you look from 2016-17 to 2017-18, our enrollment increased by 71 students in that first bump, right? From 4,200 to 4,273. Then in the next bump, it went down by 144 in 2018, 2019. Next bump, it went down by 64, 2019 to 2020. So then you look at this year and you say, oh my gosh, you know, 307 students. But I think there's a variety of different reasons. So I did put that at the bottom of the sheet. When we looked at our homeschoolers, we have 86 homeschoolers. And we had 60 less kindergartners. So that's significant. So even when we did our enrollment, you look from kindergarten for this year, and then you look at really the projected enrollment of first grade. So that's 228. So the reason why we didn't reduce any other teachers, we've kept them at, and that may look really low for first grade, is we're probably going to get a bump in both first grade and kindergarten. So we could add up the kindergartners that we lost, but we don't know where else we've lost students. That they may have just found other routes, or, you know, other plans, or you were talking a little bit earlier today about
Right, so
some
there's
other
some children, and
dilemmas.
I'm sure, Armand, you're seeing this in your district, where suddenly a family has just disappeared. And, you know, they stay on our rolls until we can track somebody down. But it's not all that unusual right now for us, you know, to take months to actually find families who have left the state, gone across the country,
Whatever.
you know, whatever, just because of circumstances. So,
And some families have moved in, but they are still remoting into their other state. But then when come fall, they will be our student, because so many students, so many families have moved into the town as well. So you've got both of those things going on. So I would really say that when you're looking at that 307, it's probably solidly at least half of that we can account for. And then probably even more than that, another 50 to possibly 100, where we're still figuring out what the numbers are. But even in these projections where you saw it go up by 71 and then down by 144 and then down by 64, even if we say, yeah, we may lose 100 students, I think that makes much more sense if we say, okay, 3,900 is probably our number rather than 3,750 for next year. But this is going to be a difficult year to figure that out. But I caution reducing any of our sections in any area, because I really think our students are coming back, and many families said it's just because of COVID. Don't take it personally. You know, we just want to know that our students are going to be safe. So it's just a tough situation right now. So that gives you kind of the big broader brush stroke in enrollment.
John?
It's so strange to hear someone apologizing for class numbers that are still higher than they should be. Really?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it would be lovely if we could have class sizes of 16, John. You're right.
What do you think they should be, John?
Especially at those levels, at those ages.
Mid-teens in the lower level, you know, you want a certain number of kids, there have to be to interact with each other and to just
Otherwise
make it
it's-
dynamic.
Sure.
But you don't want 25 kids in every room either.
It's really tough.
Can you explain you said something about kindergarten to first grade?
Yep.
Are we expecting
So-
to lose 60 kids?
No. So what happened was the number that you see under first grade was really approximately the numbers that we had, the 228, anywhere between that 288 to 228, where we thought they were coming, then they're doing homeschooling. So it's back and forth and back and forth. So now when we look at that first grade, they're low. But like John said, you really want them, certainly if they're coming in with huge needs, you want the class sizes to be smaller, but also we think that there's going to be a huge bump, especially in kinder and first grade. So we don't want to say, oh, we don't need those teachers, because I really think that we're going to.
Yeah, no, I totally agree
Yeah.
with the lower class size. This is just kindergarten under 2020, 2021 says 288. So so that's how many we have now.
No, it's actually fluctuated because we took October 1st and
That's
so
October
you,
1st
right,
numbers.
Oh, so you've
exactly.
lost that
So
many
we're
kids.
proposing, right.
Okay.
So
Got
it's
it,
been
got it.
up, down. No, it makes total sense. So those were where we, because
Thought
you
you
have
were
to
gonna be-
freeze it in time.
Okay,
So
okay.
as time went on, we're back and forth and back.
So
and
out of this
Right.
465, 60 of them didn't even come after, or are no longer in the system after.
So what you see right now, this is the 3758 is
Yeah.
now.
Oh, sorry, right, that's 2020, 2021, got it.
Yep.
So those kindergartners that didn't come this
Okay,
year
understand that.
would then go to first grade, right?
Not necessarily.
But
Mm.
some might, some will.
Right.
If that's, right? I mean, because some parents
a-
kept them home
right,
and did their
so
own
they
home
would-
thing.
And
So-
then if they're 6 years old, they'll go to first grade. So,
They could still do kinder. It just
They could.
depends. I think
because
when we
kindergarten is
do the-
not required though, correct?
Correct.
We're actually
Not-
having that conversation right now with
Okay.
Paula and
Yeah.
families. Families are asking the question now. The
Right.
kindergarten registration is open, the kindergarten fair is next weekend.
It's
So,
hard.
right, we're starting to tease that out on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, just curious on how that works.
But Nikki, we lost kids right along the way. Some of them started in kindergarten and then decided this is just
Wasn't
not
for
what
them,
it's
yeah.
not for us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. And the-
Who's
Oh,
gonna
so-
make that decision on whether they go to kindergarten or first grade? Because, you know, we also have, I have 4 kids on my street that are in kindergarten that their parents just didn't send them. Um, but
Yeah.
Some families, there's not a lot of that schooling going on, so then could we say you're not at a level to go to first grade? Or, you know what I mean, when we do our screening?
I think the answer is yes. But we really want this to be a collaborative
Right.
conversation.
Yeah.
And have everybody at the table understand what's in the best interest of the child, right? So we don't want anybody to suffer as a result of these circumstances. However, we also don't want to place children in a situation where they're just not going to be successful. So it's just going to be a conversation that has to happen, and Paula, you know, is meeting with every single family.
Yeah, because I think we also have to be concerned about the kids that did have the full kindergarten this year, that, you know, what the impact that would have on them.
Oh, yeah, no, agree.
no, I was just gonna say, so the numbers, and I know, again, you're throwing darts in the sky, so
Mhm.
totally get that. I get it can change drastically. But these numbers are what you're thinking based on the best guess that you have now.
Right, so what we normally do is we look at the enrollment that we
And then-
have, and then we just
Yeah.
bump it up a year.
Yeah.
But with the one that you're seeing that goes from 288 to 228, that 288 was October 1, and right now, we don't have 288
Right.
to move forward, but
Yeah.
we are expecting that the majority of those kids who fell off along the way are gonna find their way back. But we don't know where they'll land. Are they gonna come to kindergarten? Are they
Or
gonna come to
first grade.
first grade?
Right.
And yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So probably both of those numbers are gonna change.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, yes,
I have a question on 8th grade to 9th.
on which one? I'm sorry.
8th grade to 9th grade,
8th to 9th, yes.
quite a.
Yeah.
That's the usual.
Yeah. Yep. Unfortunately, we hope in the future that will change.
But
Uh,
it could be a lot higher depending on,
Little by little, our high school enrollment has been going up, so it would be great to have our students go to their high school, their neighborhood high school, go to our
Right,
high
and I
school.
think
You
they're,
gotta lose at least
there's more
30 or
and more
40
there.
to tech, at least.
but I think more and more they're leaning toward. high
Yes,
school
and
the
then we
past few
had,
years.
Maybe.
exactly, and we had some students during the summer actually say, you know what, I really do want to go to Torrington High School, and it was wonderful
That's great.
Yeah,
to be able
sometimes
to
they
welcome
change.
them back.
That's great.
Yep.
Mr. Lafreniere.
I just want to say that we really changed, we do provide the information of the other schools within the middle school, but we don't necessarily make it easy. We don't process the applications like we used to. We don't gather the applications. It's all on the families now to reach out to those schools, get those applications, submit those applications, whereas we used to do it for them. So that will also kind of impact probably the high school enrollment from 8th to 9th. There is a lot of chatter about the new school, kids being excited about that. And as well, and the third thing just left my head. So, oh, we didn't get to do the shadow day this year like we have in the past.
Right. Yes, the kids loved that. So it'd be great to get back to that. So we're ready, post-COVID, right? Next year.
Definitely.
Thank you for that. That was good information. Okay. So now going back to our ESSER 2 and what we were just figured out with our EL plan of $923,660. How do we want to, because it is a good idea to take some positions that we're probably going to need for the long term, not just for a couple of years, and put them in general budget.
I have a thought, Armin.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Please.
I was thinking about this right after we decided to postpone the discussion, but is it out of the realm of possibility to request, these sorts of like permanent things that we need in both the budget request and the SR2 grant, sort of as a contingency? Because like I said at the last meeting, governments do this all the time, right? Where they sort of shuffle things between special funds and general funds to make sure that ultimately the need gets met. And so if we do think that, we really, really need this, regardless of whether or not, it ends up in the budget allocation from the city, then, I'm totally okay with also requesting it in the grant, as long as we'd be able, if we did request something in the grant and get it in our budget, if there's a mechanism to adjust how we would use the grant money. Like basically, I don't want to be in a position where somebody thinks that we attempted to defraud the state and federal government asking for things that we already have money for. But if we would be able to sort of change our grant application partway through the process, then, I would say requesting things that we really need in both requests to make sure that the need gets met at the end of the day would probably be, my thought would be that'd be the best thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a good idea. Sue, the feasibility of that?
Well, the
What are your thoughts?
ESSER 2 is due April 19th.
Right.
And we have to have our general budget to the city by April 15th. So that makes it somewhat problematic in terms of having both. I could ask the state, we usually separate it out. We do have the other support funding coming from the American Rescue Act.
Right.
I don't know what the board would like to do in terms of some of these positions that are very likely to become permanent positions.
Well, I think that's what I think everybody's asking for, is the ones that are most likely to become permanent positions should go into the general budget. And then the ones that are temporary, or maybe that you're piloting, maybe should stay in the grant funding. If that makes sense. I think that's what everybody's asking. Maybe not all the same way, but I think that's what everybody's asking for. Nikki.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we were asking that. I think hearing Sue talk about like the American Rescue Act and the fact that it maybe needs to be used in the same time period.
I know, right?
That,
Right, it's complicated.
that worries me a little bit, that that's a lot of money to kind of just be throwing to say it's new hires or this or that to spend. And are we better off allocating some of these things to that because we have that much money coming in? And my only comment on the ELL is I'd love to see like a proposal for the program because we talk a lot about like staffing needs,
Mhm.
but I would imagine there's like resources and, program needs, technology, software, and like, what is that whole package
Mhm.
to help raise those scores? And I just don't know that we're there yet. Or it doesn't sound like we are.
No, well, the other piece, I know I'm going to turn to Sue because there is a need for a reading program at the K-5 and really
Right.
6-8 supports as well. And I
Right.
know the state is also working on this
Right,
at the
so
same
it's,
time.
it's really very, very coincidental, actually. I don't believe in coincidences, but I think you may remember a year ago when we were having these budget discussions, I came to you with a request for some phonemic awareness resources, some phonics resources, and that kind of thing, because the program resources that we use right now are lacking in those areas. So we did purchase those, but what we've done is really kind of Band-Aid things. So we've been having a conversation for a couple of years about the need for a real comprehensive reading program, especially K-5, and really in our district right now, K-8, because our kids that are in 6 through 8 right now have not benefited from having had that K-5. So as we've been having that conversation and really getting serious about it and starting to maybe look at things, the state there was just something came up before the legislature last Wednesday. They're actually going to identify 5 reading programs and require districts to select from that list. So to purchase something like that for a district our size for K-8 would be about $1 million. So.
And that would benefit all students, including our.
Correct, sorry, that was the question. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it would be all kids, right? All kids would benefit from that.
Is this something the state is going to give us?
No,
Choose it?
no,
we have to-
but-
I was like, wait a minute.
I knew that.
No,
I wanted to ask the question just to make sure.
But what
They
they
would be
have
recommended
said
if that was the case.
is,
They'd be
what
telling
in
us.
all of the, it would hit the paper.
Yeah.
And what they've said is, they recognize that all the districts are receiving this money and this money could be
Right.
utilized to make a purchase like that.
Okay, all right.
Would
And
that-
you saw what
Because-
happened in math, right? I mean, our
Yeah.
math scores have
Right.
gone up because we did make the investment. So to make that kind of an investment in the literacy end of it.
Right,
Yeah, that'd be great.
so.
I mean, I totally believe
Yeah.
this with all my heart, that
Mhm.
it would make a huge difference.
Okay,
Just
Sounds good.
one
Go
quick though. If the state's gonna recommend literacy programs, are they gonna dictate to us what the children have to read, or is that gonna be?
They're gonna choose,
It's an important question.
they're
I
gonna
know you know that,
choose
but-
5. But it's, so, I mean, I don't want
Be
to
honest.
throw out publishers' names, but typically there's, some major publishers that are among those that are
Publishing houses.
publishing houses, correct, that are scientifically based and that sort of thing. And they all have to include the phonics piece, the phonemic awareness, right? So they all have to have that. So is that your question? Because if it is, then the answer is yes.
I meant more.
He's talking about the
You
content.
know what I'm talking
He's talking about the
about.
content.
No, these will be.
I have no idea. I'm asking.
These
You know,
would be
it's how the state gets you hooked in.
anthology type reading books, similar to probably what your kids had back in the day,
That'd be great.
where everybody read the same thing
Mm-hmm.
and they were supported and all of these varying skill areas were, all the components that are required for kids to really learn to read well, to read, to write, to spell, to learn grammar.
Yeah,
Imagine,
yes.
I mean, all those things are built into these programs.
And that's
If
how it
John's
used
happy,
to
I'm
be
happy.
50 years ago.
Yes,
You had
yes.
a
Your
separate
grandchildren in
phonics
this
book.
year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's the book they're gonna hand out.
All right.
Okay. So, Sue,
Yes.
questions,
Mhm.
because
Sure.
kind of know where we stand, like the more,
In terms of pilot versus.
yeah, and
GD?
like permanent versus temporary, and maybe things that are more things like materials and those kinds of things, software, those are things that we can hold on for a while
Mhm.
versus a staffing position, which if it's not in general budget and we're gonna need it for long term,
Mhm,
should probably not go in a grant and go into the
Right.
general budget.
mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but
Okay.
you're gonna have a long list.
Okay.
But
Okay.
even knowing we have 6 million coming, potentially, I know that number's gonna
Yeah.
change, but even knowing we have that much coming down.
So
That's-
here's,
Well,
I
I
just
think,
have to comment on the 6
Yeah.
million.
yeah,
So the 6 million, so these are things, when you look at our ELL population,
Right.
this population has been underserved for years. And what it means is that we don't pay for a teacher today, but now the student who requires these supports is not in the program for 1 or 2 years. They're now in it for 6 or 7. And they can't test out because we're not servicing them. So we're servicing them to what we have to, but we're not actually moving the kids forward when they're getting 20 minutes a week. You know, if you look at the roof, Jason brought up the roof at the middle school. So when we bonded out for the roof, we got half a roof.
Mhm.
We still have the other half of the roof to do. And if we don't do the other half of the roof,
Mhm.
it's going to continue to flood into the building, which is causing more problems.
Well, and by the time we get there, all the insulation is gonna be shot. We'll be
Yeah.
replacing insulation and roof. So
Right,
it'll be
right.
about $3 million instead of.
And all the new tiles that were just replaced.
Yeah.
So that $6 million, once they finally clarify exactly what we can use it for, is gonna go a lot quicker than we all
Oh,
think.
yeah,
If we start
yeah.
looking at some of these big items
Yeah.
that we may be able to cover under that, which
Right.
will save the town a lot more money if we use that to hit some of these big projects.
Right.
You
If
think
we're
we'd be
able
able
to.
to?
I
When
think,
you look at it, it looks like it
Yeah.
might be something that we can do.
I
Use for
mean, it could
capital.
always be, I mean, it has to be a safe environment for the students. And it has to be healthy, right? A leaky roof is not safe or healthy, correct? So I don't see why. it
Yeah,
wouldn't
or
be able to use-
windows. I mean, I'm
Windows
just saying.
Windows are,
It's a tough one.
Right. Or
We don't know
windows, I mean,
yeah.
Let's pay to end that project.
But
Who
the
needs
EL
windows?
EL is not going away. I mean, it's only,
Yeah.
gonna-
it's only
and
gonna
I'm not in favor of throwing money at it. It's embarrassing when I have kids tell me that we think they're stupid because, they don't get service because they're Ecuadorian, they speak English, but not more than embarrassing. It's sad that we missed it. We missed the boat starting off. We didn't understand it. I'm sure lots of communities go through the same thing and ignore it, but if we say we're gonna do what we say we're gonna do and get these kids to high school, reading, writing, arithmetic, and get out through the pathways, we have to service these kids because they're not getting what they need. You can look at their scores.
Right, the other thing that happens too.
I'm not criticizing anybody, but
No, I'm not taking it personally. The other thing that happens too frequently is that English language learners are often identified to receive special education.
Yeah.
And
right,
that's,
that's crazy.
and
Right.
correct,
Right.
Mhm.
That's two kids that told me the same thing, and their
right.
parents didn't understand either, and that's the other
Yeah.
problem. If they have someplace to go
Right.
to,
Mhm.
that advocate can say, no, this child should not be here, besides
Right.
Laura, of course. But
And a coordinator would help with when they come in off the
Yeah,
plane and 2 days
exactly.
later they arrive at the high school.
Right.
And the high school scrambling to figure out what do we do
Right.
with these kids. We don't even have transcripts trying to try. I mean, there's so much involved, but it affects everyone
Mhm.
in the school. And I also, I've said it in the past, I'll say it in the future. I mean, our community is our community, but we all need to take responsibility for it. And a lot of these things that we're providing in the schools are a result of things that we've done in our community. So these things come with a cost, right? So a lot of the projects, housing developments that are going up, there's a cost to it and we have to be prepared for it. We were never prepared for the influx of students and that's not anyone's fault. But now we know they're here, we have to provide adequate resources.
Well, not only that, we have jobs too.
wasn't
In
saying-
the
Exactly.
areas,
Not only
we
that,
have
we need-
employment, we have
Right.
employment. We have employment in
That's
the
exactly right.
areas of their skills.
Right.
And it's been like that for a long time.
I just want to, I just want to clarify, like, I'm not disagreeing that we don't need this. I think
No,
I'm
no.
more saying that I want to see the program that should be put in place.
But
to
we
meet-
have a
it.
program,
We just don't have
Nikki.
enough
We just
people.
don't have
We don't
enough
have-
people to implement it
Yeah.
the way it
Right.
should be.
Okay, so we have
We
a program and
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
have those schools, so
We
we
have
only
a
staff
program,
it.
we have resources, we
Yeah.
have all, yeah, but we just don't have enough humans
Bodies.
to
Right.
to
Okay.
physically do
Yeah.
it the right way.
Yeah, but I think to present it to the Board of Finance, we still need to have, if it's Laura or if it's you, so clearly spell out,
Yeah,
why it's needed and how it will benefit and what the benefits how the benefits will impact us or affect us for the next 50 years. Clearly, point out what we've not done in the past and how we expect the payoff. And like Fiona said, instead of the kid being stuck in there for 6 years, it's like Dina Calabrese learned the language in 1 year in kindergarten with a good kindergarten teacher. Back when she came here, that was what she told me. I'm sure there was also help in the school, but with whatever proper allocation of attention was given, she learned it in a year.
I bet they had a reading program too.
Right. So
I
you
agree
want to
with you.
see the return on investment, and
correct.
that's what you're saying.
I
Like we
think the
have in
presentation
special
needs to be
ed.
made.
Right.
Well,
That's what
exactly,
Nikki was saying.
right, like,
Right.
so we, is the coordinator position what's needed first? And then they determine what the structure should be, kind of like Laura did, right? Or is it, or I guess what I'm hearing is it's purely a staffing issue, not a program, not anything else.
Right
Right.
now, it's a staffing issue.
And Sue would still work with that coordinator. It's different than Laura coming in as the director. So Sue would still work with the coordinator to see what the high school needs. And then that person would also be the coordinator K-12. But the need is exactly what Fiona says. Here, the students come in and they don't speak the language, and what are their needs and what are the family needs? It's a kind of social worker, teacher outreach, and then all the other things, responsibilities that go along with just servicing ELL students that are idiosyncratic to them.
I guess sorry, just one other comment, like the part I struggle with a little bit is it wasn't part of the original recommendation. So to hear it's such this big bomb, which I fully get and I understand, but it wasn't called out anywhere that it was such a big need. And I think I struggle a little bit with that.
I've been saying it for
For
4
sure.
years, so, but now you can see the numbers. Now, I think part of the issue is you can see the numbers that are so bad, but I've seen it for 4 or 5 years now.
Helen,
I think this will also help like the middle of the road child because
Mhm.
everything is taken away from that child or has been through no
Teacher
fault
being
of
pulled
the
out of the
poor
classroom.
child. Do you know what I mean? Because the teacher had to help this ELL or taken out and the middle of the road child was always struggling. And I think this will help because every year I've been on the board, everything gets taken away from the poor middle of the road child and then they just struggle all the way through. And I
How
think
is
there's
this
a lot of
addressing the
that.
middle of the road?
Hmm?
How is that addressing the middle of the road? Yeah.
Because you'll have specialized to help others and then the teacher can better evaluate and see what the middle of the road child is getting. Like supplies aren't taken away, it's.
Well, if you look at Torrington School, there's 3 in every class, 3
Yeah,
yellow kids
yeah.
in every class that aren't getting.
But that's
the
not going
added-
to change, right? Wouldn't they still stay in the class?
yeah, they will.
So we want them to be able to be there and then to
right.
be there with an EL
EL.
teacher. So a co-teaching model, very similar to what we do in the
Right.
special ed, has really been helpful. And they don't have to be in there all day for the teacher to really learn some skills that she can use with, or he can use with all of the students, right? Because it's
Right.
language acquisition. and
Right. Good
It's
teaching
learning
for
to
everybody.
communicate and
Right.
it's, right. So it really helps with all of those skills.
And I think the other main point is, so the superintendent, when they bring a budget to the board, it's never new positions. So
It's never
every
what, sorry?
position, it's never new positions because it's always,
It's minimal.
we have to
Right.
keep the number low. So all of these things like these ELO are all bringing back what's been cut over the years. Same thing with the interventionists at
Right.
elementary
Yep.
to work with kids. Those were cut over the
Yeah.
years and you're bringing them back. So all you're doing is trying to replenish a broken system, a system that because of continual cuts got us into an alliance status because we don't have the foundation to service our population of kids. And I think from a Board of Ed standpoint, the superintendent has to be fiscally responsible to everyone, city, taxpayers. But the Board of Education, I think us as elected officials really need to be looking out for what are the needs of the school and fighting for the issues of needs that are impacting every student in every school. And I think if you ask teachers, they'll tell you what an impact not having these services are on their everyday classroom. And we're
Yeah, I've
losing
heard that.
kids left and right. And
Yeah.
that's really where we should be coming from. If Sue came originally to the Board of Ed, maybe not this Board of Ed, but typically saying they want to add all these positions, everyone would say, get out of here, right?
Right.
Right.
So. I
And
think
only
it's up to
now,
us.
right, and only
Jason?
now do we have a little bit of money.
Jason?
Just coming from a teacher's point of view, and I don't think this, this shouldn't have to be said, but I think it's important to be said, is that a student who receives EL services very well may be capable of doing all the work. There's the language barrier, and we need that tool to reach that child. And we don't necessarily have that tool right now as readily available as we need it. So I think this is a huge thing that the board needs to take into consideration, because not all EL students are performing below where they should be. They just don't have the access to it in a language that is familiar with them. And we need to help bring that language to them and bring the information to them in a way that they're able to perform.
I have a quick
Very
question.
true.
Go ahead,
I
question.
promise it's quick, John. Is there a reason why we can't have children out of the classroom, almost inundating them with language once a week or twice a
They
week?
do that too.
Yeah,
Oh, but I mean, if there's 10 kids, let's say in the third grade that need the services, there would be a program that would allow those 10 kids to be with a teacher so they can learn faster rather than just be one of 3 in the class that get some attention.
most of it right now is pullout because,
Okay. Oh, I didn't-
because we don't
There's
have
not
enough
enough people
staff.
to go into the classroom.
Okay, I thought it
Right.
was in
So
the class.
It's both.
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
And it's always going to have to be both, because initially the child needs that pull out to work on those language acquisition
Right.
skills before they can access.
I thought you were leaving them all in the class.
No.
Okay.
No, but they're all at different levels too.
Right.
So some are fine in the classroom, some need more. So it all depends on where they are in the continuum 1 through 5. You know, so some will pick it up quicker, some won't. It's just the way it is. So, yeah. But push in is really the way that the kind of what's the flavor of the month,
Yeah, I
so
know.
to speak, right now. Push in special ed in all the areas. They really want you to push in instead of pull out. So, you know, that's
What do
kind
you
of,
think works best then?
it depends on the child. To tell you the truth, it depends on the child.
The distraction
Bottom
in the
line.
classroom, yeah.
Bottom line, it depends on the individual child. Everybody's different. Right,
And some children need both.
right, and yeah. Because that happens sometimes too, where they're in the classroom with somebody and then later on that day, they get pulled out for, you know, to do whatever, maybe go over, do the homework from that class in a pull-out session. So it all depends. Okay, so so it sounds like everybody wants to see the EL, this proposal, including the HR proposal in the budget.
I do. And social, too.
Yeah, everything,
Yeah,
yeah,
everything. The 9, almost $1 million, 9 something.
$923,660.
So you can make it work.
Remember, we're gonna put it on one line item like we did last year,
Mhm.
so we'll make it easier.
But we'll keep the detail.
Details, okay?
Okay. All right.
You're not so good.
And then,
Speak your mind.
Oh, I mean, I think I did.
Sue, do you have any other questions for us as far as the ESSER grant? Like, is there anything that you know?
Yeah, so where I would be going with this is the Spanish and the music. Those are things that if I don't ask you this year, I'm asking you next year. And then everything that's in yellow. Those are things that I need for 2 years. And, you know, if you're really asking,
Yeah.
then I'd go down all those things that are in yellow to say, you know, those are things after the 2 years I'm likely to ask you to continue. But I can put it out there and then the board has to decide
Yeah.
what you'd like to put in the budget, because it becomes your budget
Yeah.
very soon.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What do you think, Gary?
I would move everything over. I mean, we've said this for 3 years since I've been on, that we can't keep getting rid of class teachers or levels of education or classes, or making them, grant funded only and then having to pull them away later or end the program. That's how we got into the mess in the first place. So I would move everything over that she needs over. And then go back and look at it later.
Nikki?
I think, the projected enrollment, be it as off as it is down 500 students in the last 2 years. We're getting $9 million. I just think we asked the taxpayers to pay for a new high school. Like, I think using some of the money we have as at least the Band-Aid to get us through, because that's a lot of money to spend.
Mr. Corey?
Yeah. So I want to kind of clarify what I was saying earlier. So for example, when I was working for the mayor in New Haven, the city needed lead inspectors, right? They needed them really badly. There was a serious crisis with lead paint in apartments across the city, right? They only had 2 of them. They requested 2 in their budget to the Board of Alders, their local council, and they requested those positions from the Department of Health in a grant. And what ended up happening is the Board of Alders only passed a budget for 1 extra position, but because they requested 2 in their grant, they then revised their grant request down to 1 and were still able to fill both positions. And so I get, like, what I'm saying basically is all of this stuff is a need. And if it's at all possible to request them, the long-term positions anyway, in both our general budget and in the SR2 grant, knowing full well that we might get approved in the general budget for some of these positions, planning to revise the SR2 grant as needed, I think that's what we ought to do, just because I ultimately, like, what matters to me the most, and I agree in this sense with Nikki, what matters to me the most is that we get the job done, whether, it's a position or a program or whatever it is. What matters to me is that it gets purchased and paid for. And so, if it's at all possible to kind of request it in both places, see what we can get in our budget, in the long-term view, and then fill the rest of it with, grant money. That's what I would like to do. Just because ultimately what matters is that we get it paid for.
Yeah. And I agree with you, Ed, on that one.
It's just wonky because it's 2 deadlines on this, in the same week.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm saying, if we can request it in the SR grant and then, plan to revise that grant based on our different budget needs at the time. I obviously, like I said, I don't want to end up in a position where we get something paid for from 2 different places and then, get caught up in all of that. But if it would be possible to revise the grant later based on, evolving needs, and not get into trouble for that, I think that's what we should do.
Okay.
What? Do you know the answer to that?
No, I have to call the
We have
state.
to call.
Yeah. So, Ed, Sue said she's gonna call the state and get clarification.
Yeah, no, I mean, I trust you folks in central office, and I've said on the record before, and I'll say it again, I've never met a Board of Education budget increase that I didn't like. So, I trust you guys, to tell us what you need and to figure out how best we can get it. I'm just kind of giving my 2 cents.
Yeah, and just to clarify, so I think I'm looking at this more as a more long-term item and coming in as a board member where everything had been decimated and trying to rebuild it has been very difficult, and we're fortunate because of some of these items, but just in what we're funding out of Alliance, which the goal would be that we're not always going to be an Alliance district, but just to close that gap of what we're funding through that one grant I think it's short-sighted to future boards and the community to not recognize what the real cost to run a school system is in a town like Torrington. And I think the more we skirt off things into temporary grants, the general budget is never going to absorb all these things at the same time. So in 2 years, when all of this runs out, you're not getting $3 million from the city to cover those items.
Right.
If you look at 15 years historically, what the Board of Ed has gotten over a 15-year period, you're not going to encompass all these positions, so
I know.
you're going to lose them.
No, I know.
So
Yeah.
my
But-
feeling is it's up to the Board of Finance and the City Council. If they want to push it off to grants, that's their decision. But they have to understand that the bottom is going to fall out in a couple of years. And are they going to commit to covering those shortfalls for all these mandatory positions? Because I would feel much more comfortable if the Board of Finance and City Council would agree that they recognize that we're putting these mandatory items into grants for 2 years, but then after 2 years, we're gonna have to fund all of these positions out of general budget.
Right.
And we can't do that by cutting our 2-year down the road budget by these amounts. So I think it's fine to do it temporarily as long as there's an agreement with the city and the Board of Ed that this is a temporary solution to fund these positions.
It's like a balloon payment.
It's a balloon payment.
Well, also, I think the alliance thought process is to get your district so that you don't need some of those positions any longer, correct? Like where the needs, where the students are at a certain level where they don't need all that extra support in school. So that's really how you come off alliance.
Except that it's different
legitimately.
students though. That's the problem that I have with that
Well, I'm just
logic
saying
from the
that-
state, because we're not, in 6 years, it's not the same students that we're addressing, it's new kids.
Well, and look,
So some of the big positions I
Yeah.
agree with,
Right.
because that's
Yeah.
structurally development, teaching, but there's a lot in there that's not.
if we go down, and I hope it's the Danbury path, for instance, where we're gonna have double the population, or at least 50% more English language learning requirements. It's just happening. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, it served Danbury very well, to have that group, that population, that
Brazilian population.
Brazilian and, I mean, mostly Brazilian, Ecuadorian, Brazilian, and some others. But we're gonna have to service them, and to try to catch up later is gonna be impossible. It'll be multi-millions. I think we need to grow it with the population growth and with the needs, and we haven't done it since it started, but, we can't, we're never gonna get it back later. I mean, I like having the $6 to $9 million. Hopefully we can use that for things other than that. I don't know what that may be, but maybe it's capital needs that come up, but maybe Ed can find some good projects for it, but I don't know what it would be. How are we gonna pay for the reading program, for instance? Would that be part of it? Okay. So, yeah, I don't see us avoiding. I'd hate to see it go back to the way it was the reason I got on the board, which was coming from the state that we don't know what we're doing. That was directly from the state. We don't know how to manage it. And, but you couldn't manage without the resources. You couldn't manage without the staff. And you couldn't manage without the administration. And I really feel bad for these kids.
And we've proven what we've done with the special ed program, so.
But I do think it's important that whoever's going to present this in a separate line, that they have that there's a, if we do it, that there's an explanation and there's a presentation to fully vet out the need, whichever way we decide to go with it.
We have to budget for what we have, what the needs are of the district. We can't be shorting. It's.
But also, I'd like to say one more thing. Well, if we go about this, that we have, this gets into sick probably, but that we hold these kids to standards and that we really work hard to get them through and get them to learn and not pull off on it when we find out next year, well, we're gonna be short, $100,000 and you have to come in and say, well, we have to get rid of it, whatever.
Where are you getting the 500 reduction in students from? Nikki?
When I added these, the 20 right here on this sheet, like when I added 947, 1690, and 925, I get 3,552. But check my
That doesn't
math.
have pre-K and outplacement on it. That
This
just
does?
has- Yes,
Oh, okay.
This does, the 3,758.
So how much is the how much is pre-K?
I don't know off the top of my
Oh,
head, but I can tell you all of these are pre-K and
Okay,
outplacement
so
students as well.
What's that roughly like?
I have no idea,
Oh,
and I don't want to guess.
3,758.
Yeah,
Oh, so you could just subtract
Yes,
that from
ex-
last year? Did you already do that math?
You're missing the 60, you're missing the.
right, we'd have
Yeah,
to get you the
60
pre-K
kindergarten
numbers
kids.
and the
80, you can do that.
outplacement
Plus the
numbers,
outplacement
yeah,
separate.
Right.
because they're two separate
3,758.
things.
1756.
Which I think
minus
is probably gonna
999.
be backfilled by those unknown.
Yeah, it's
unknown
120.
kindergartners.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's
why
not
we're
sure
leaving
before.
those positions in there.
I
Right,
think we're gonna be more in line with last year's numbers than
Correct.
that 3,758.
Yep.
You know, I think we're gonna
Maybe
be
even a little
around
more.
4,000, 4,100 students.
yeah, or
next
back to
year.
that 30, in between that 39 to 4,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my feeling on that, but,
Mhm.
you know, I can't see into the future either.
No. I just don't
But
want us
based
to,
on-
I want to make sure that everyone understands the enrollment.
Yeah, so if I take the 3,758 and subtract these numbers, the enrollment for 2020 to 2021,
Yeah, because this
Yeah.
doesn't include pre-K that we're required to service or
Exactly.
outplacements. This is just what's in the.
so you get
buildings.
125 kids roughly, knowing that there's some movement in there. So it's down 400 versus the 5.
But
No,
just-
306.
30,
is what I'm
right,
coming up with.
I had 307.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. Are you subtracting these two numbers?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm projecting 21, 22. That's the difference.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. So this has all of our kids,
Yeah, that's only 20. That's
19,
this year.
20,
Yep,
and then
there is no
2021.
Uh-huh. And then I was just estimating like what we're planning for this year, or this budget cycle, 2021 to 2022.
Right, but if you remember, you've got the homeschoolers and you've got the kinder kids
Which is another
who,
140.
right,
Mhm.
I disclaimer
we're
this by
guessing.
saying, I know it's a number that, but it's the number that you're basing the counts off of, so.
right.
the only
So
thing
if
I
you
have
were to
to-
take out the COVID year, then you can see what the
Yeah.
trends are. And I think that's much more accurate than looking
Okay.
at 37. Because
Yeah.
if
Maybe
you
down
look at the
200.
rest of the trends really were,
Around 4,000.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Up, down,
Yeah.
up, down.
But in the area.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's why we're saying we wouldn't have a 300 student gap for next year. That's COVID,
Yeah.
because we've never seen that before. So I think that, we have to look at what our trends have been.
Right, and I think you built in kindergarten, whatever.
Yeah.
You built some of that into
But we
here.
didn't build in first grade, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
Because there are so many unknowns.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying, I really think if you take out the year, the 2021 year, and you really look at our pattern for the last
Yeah.
4 years, then you see a very different picture.
Yeah, we gotta look at things non-COVID,
Right,
I think, because this is temporary. Numbers, amounts for this, amounts for that, they're all temporary. So we need to think about going forward, what are we gonna need for X number of students, period? What are our needs for going forward, non-COVID? Because that's just such a,
Yeah, and I think the most
it's a monkey
important
wrench.
piece of this,
Yeah.
because if we or the city budgets based on the unknowns, because this isn't a year like any we've seen.
Right.
And the listserv was blowing up today because other districts are estimating who they think all these kids are and upping all their class sizes. And I think that's,
Yeah,
yeah,
to
we
me, would
tried
be
not to do that
worse,
either.
because
Right.
then you're,
Right.
so they're saying like 25, 26 kids, there's a bunch of them that came through today, but then you may end up with, they're adding sections because they're accounting that, say, 150 kindergartners didn't come, but 150 are gonna
Right,
come next year,
right.
but they don't actually know that.
right,
So
right.
I think, so I'm hoping that by being more conservative and not accounting specifically for unknown kids, that we don't get penalized, because if we do, when we open in August, we're not getting extra money.
Right.
So we're gonna have to cover that with our existing budget. So I think we have to be really careful about
Right.
the enrollments,
Yeah.
because we could have estimated in, like a lot of other districts are doing, to make sure they're gonna get funded for this unknown.
Right.
Um,
But I think that,
So what happens, sorry.
yeah.
So what happens to that point? Because I can understand how other districts would try to like estimate, and I know,
Yeah.
we don't like doing that in the school district, but estimating some, because then you are covering yourself, because what do you do in, I would imagine September, October, when the kids show up, then what do we do? Then are
See,
we going back to the city to ask for more money?
there is no more money.
Right, exactly, yeah,
Right.
so what do you do?
There probably won't be a heck of a lot more staff to hire either.
Right.
Right.
And
Then
so
you use
that's
some of the
why you
interventions
have,
to,
yes, you
You
may
think about
need
other
to, but
things.
also that's why you're looking at a first grade where you have 16 students in a class, because then you have some flexibility
Right.
to move some teachers around.
Mhm.
So you may have more kindergartners, you may have less.
You know, you might have to, yeah, right. Especially in the K through 5, they generally move around a little more
Yep.
or fluid between grade levels when they need to.
Sure,
Just the
there are
nature of the
Yeah.
beast.
sometimes in the summer, honestly, at the
Yeah.
elementary
Mhm.
level, it gets down to the bitter end and school's gonna open in a week and you're calling a teacher to say, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
You're teaching second grade,
Yeah.
you know, because of a
Yeah.
shift.
Because of numbers, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
So-
I think we came to an agreement with the Board of Finance and the City Council and the mayor that we were only gonna budget for what we had,
Right.
not what we projected, because
Right.
they used to just increase all these items by like 3%, I think was the average
Yeah.
number
Yeah.
every year
Right.
to cover this, but we don't do
Right.
that anymore.
So, I think if we show them that we're looking at the trend and not necessarily COVID, I think it's, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like being more honest to them and listen, we might be wrong though because of COVID, but or it could be less.
I
So,
get what you're saying, but I don't feel like we're doing that, and I don't want to keep beating this, but it doesn't feel like we're doing what you're saying. Because if we were, then this number might, without pre, like, because I know pre-K is not accounted and out of district, but this public schools enrollment should be closer to that 4,000 number, or,
Mhm.
it's not.
You're saying it's too low.
I think from what I'm hearing, yeah. But
But we have no way to know, is it 50, is it 150, is it 250?
We are,
Trying to
yeah.
figure out, like even the house turnovers. The house turnovers in Torrington don't equate to the number of kids that have shown up in our school this year.
Right.
So we have kindergartners, plus we have all those kids. We have no idea to estimate how many kids are distance learning in their towns they moved from, how many kindergartners are coming in. You can look at birth rate, but we have no way. So it's
no, I get it.
just
It's
as much a
crazy.
crapshoot, and we could be asking them for more. Like other towns are saying, let's say 26 per class, and that's
Yeah.
what we'll get budgeted for. That's,
Right.
if you don't know, you don't know.
But
Yeah.
so if you're looking at the whole homeschool number and you're looking at the kindergarten where the students didn't come, so that gets you right back to that 3,900. You add the 146, you're right
Yeah.
back there,
Yeah.
which is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Really, the 3,900 to the 4,000 again
Yeah.
next year, or 3,950.
So what about maybe another block? Would that, do you think, make it clearer if we put a block of those numbers?
To
Well, I
kind of
think
show that.
I mean, honestly, the only way to address that issue is either bring in hire more people to, if we're gonna assume there's 4,200 students, let's say, then try to plug that with more teachers, but I don't know that the students think we need that many teachers. I don't know the answer to that, but
No, and I just think like without knowing everything you're saying, you look at this and then you look at the increases, it doesn't jive, but, so I don't know if maybe when you send this out, you do put some sort of block, or you estimate based on, like you said, the homeschool, the 60 in kindergarten, plus all these numbers that you did, then you're not showing that you're planning for COVID, you're planning for, like you said, the actual historical trend.
Mhm.
well, I think we go to council or finance, we should show the higher, where we do think we'll be with the pre-K and with the kindergarten, and show the numbers
Mhm.
as best we can with a little bit
Yeah.
of fudge.
Well,
I-
yeah,
Uh,
and projections, you have to remember, they change on a daily
That's what I'm
basis.
saying.
Kids
So you-
in, kids
You can
out.
either, you can
It's
either
just
plan for the
like,
best.
Yeah.
right,
Plan
exactly.
for the
So
worst
it's,
and expect the best.
this
or
is
the
just,
opposite.
that's why they're called projections, right?
Right.
So you've got we could, put a separate block for pre-K, for outplacement, for homeschool,
Yeah,
for,
that might be
um,
helpful
Even if you
for,
change to 21
for
to
the
not take
the
it in there.
kinders,
yeah,
right,
yeah, 22 now, 18
Yeah,
to 22.
exactly.
That's
So
another,
there's
that's
just-
another added expense that
Right, and
people
it's
need to be
our
aware of.
staffing and, right,
Could stay for another year.
Well, we have a class at each school for that.
right.
Well, I'm saying
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
now they can stay
Yeah.
another year.
Right,
So-
what is
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
So, yeah, so, and I think New York is 25, so I think we're going in that direction.
You're in your parents' insurance till 26.
Yeah. So. I'm just letting you know
I'm still in my parents.
trends. What some of the trends are around the country. Yeah, 25 years old. Yeah.
Man's responsible for
So,
even growing up.
so, but yeah, so those kinds of things also need to be shown. Hey, listen, we also
Yep.
have this coming down, which, in certain years is going to add, an increased expense. And over time, it will be an increased expense, of course.
Right, and obviously we'll have a better idea, once Paula has met with all of our incoming kindergarten families.
Yeah.
We'll be
Yeah.
able to nail it down,
Yeah.
But right now
Yeah, it's tough.
it's a challenge.
Right.
Exactly, so the
Yes,
timing doesn't
exactly.
align,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And I also think, because no one knows how the start of school next year is gonna be, so I think we have families too that
Right.
are probably not gonna make a decision till next year about what they're doing.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Continuing to homeschool, sending
Right.
them back.
Yeah, they might not make a decision until August.
Right.
Right, yeah.
And we don't know what will even be required to offer. If
Yeah.
remote will still be on the table, if there
Right.
is no
Right.
remote and we just do it in
Right.
person, or Yeah.
Exactly.
So-
Exactly.
that hasn't
But give us a
been
detailed
determined
budget of
Right.
everything
Yeah,
we
right.
need.
It's
To the
crazy.
penny.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Crazy.
Very
I think
tough.
we need to plan that I think it's gonna be similar to this year. Maybe not to the extreme, but I think it's gonna be similar where there's gonna be some choice. I think for at least the beginning of next year, there's gonna be some choice, hopefully with restrictions, but I think there's gonna be some choice, which is gonna make this even harder because it's gonna be down to the wire. So that's my personal feeling on it. I think, at least a year we'll be wearing masks in school and stuff like that anyway, so. Just my personal feeling. So, so, yeah. Okay, so, we're gonna, ask for the EL positions and, human resource positions, because we need those in the SEL positions. So 2 social workers. Because it's something we need. Correct? That's what we're doing, right?
Here's, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna say a word after this, but I swear. So I guess in my mind, I'm thinking new positions, I'm not as uncomfortable putting in grants as I am existing positions that have already been in grants that we know are working and should get funneled into general budget.
How can you increase the size, let's say EL, they're gonna be new positions. If we know we're gonna have more of those needs down the road, we can't get rid of them later.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if we shouldn't do like a combo,
What do you think?
some in grants, some for the newer positions, and then
Well,
looking at like these, maybe moving some of those IT positions into general budget, keeping some of them in grant,
Yeah.
and then doing the same with the others, so that at least at the end, we have a half a program everywhere. That we're, you know what I mean?
well, that's what
I'll go along with you
that's,
guys, I'm new to this, so.
that's what I said
I
earlier.
mean, we have
right?
time to think about it.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. I think we slowly bring those positions in. So if you want to call it half and half, whatever you, however you want to do it, however you want to budget it, Sue, that's fine. Do a half. So there's 4 IT positions, I think, so maybe 2 in GB next year, and then 2 in the grant, and we'll see what's, and then we could slowly bring those positions into the budget. That's, that was kind of my thinking before, so. Yes, Jess, go ahead.
Are you talking about pulling them out of the grant right now? Because I was just wondering if we were to take stuff out of the grant proposals right now, like obviously something else would have to go into those proposals. So
Yeah.
do we have other things that we would want to include in the grant proposals that we couldn't afford to include in them?
Well, I think maybe some of the new EL positions, maybe can go in there. So like a half and half type thing was what Fiona had mentioned.
But don't we want those to be permanent positions? I mean, like, does
Well, we
it
do.
end up mattering, right? So if you want the IT techs to be permanent, so you take them out of grant, but then you put the EL positions into grant and you really want those all to be permanent, does it end up making a difference at the end of the day? Or are there other additional things that we would now put into the grant that we haven't even seen yet because there wasn't room for them anywhere?
What do you think so?
Well, I think if we get a 0 from the city,
I can't.
then whatever we put in this grant is what we're gonna get. So if we
Right.
get a 0, we're not gonna get any of the things that we've put into general budget unless we're willing to cut other things to pay for it.
Or you put it in both.
Which is why.
Then you get,
Yeah.
then we get to Ed's, you
Let's
transfer.
come back.
Yeah, Yeah.
Here.
right.
I mean, I think ultimately we're gonna be having to push all these things into the grant. Because everybody knows we have this grant money and nobody's gonna wanna raise the mill rate. That's
Except that the grand
my
list,
crystal ball for you.
Well, it depends what other department. I mean, I think we should equally get what other departments got. And if they get 0, we get 0.
Mhm.
But
I think we should present what we need.
I think we should present what we need, exactly.
Mhm.
This is the education budget.
But yeah, so I mean, maybe bottom line, we put it in both and we just do a revised grant proposal.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to just talk to the state
Yeah.
tomorrow and find out if, what's possible.
Yeah.
And then get back to you
Yeah,
on that.
I mean, the
piece.
state might frown upon that because they might say, well, if you need it, it needs to go into a budget and
Yeah.
you should do that.
the
And
city might
city
also.
would
The city
frown.
might- I was just thinking,
Because
right,
if
the
I was
city
on the
would
Board of
frown.
Finance, I would say,
Yeah.
no way. I'm getting
You
that.
can get it through grant, go
Go
for it.
for it.
Yeah, right. I know that. I know.
Well, I would say, well, let's let the Hispanic community make a determination as to what they think. Are they getting what they deserve in education? If they're not, then somebody needs to speak up. If that's where the hole is. Same thing we've done with special ed. I don't want to deal with a hole for big kids that need to be educated. We can cut an algebra class, or I don't want to do that either. I'm not saying we're going to do that. I'm saying you can cut an algebra class and it impacts everybody, but when we have no ELL attention, then we have 26% of our students who don't get the attention they need, or 11%. But anyway, we've got big gaps to make up.
Yes.
But we can say, we need 1.5 million. And of that, we will put into the grant almost 600,000.
Say that again?
So because it's between the EL, the HR, social worker, and the ESSER that we need, it comes to 1.5 million.
Is it 1.5? I thought it was more than that.
No, it was more than that too.
I
Just
come up
the
with
tech alone is-
1.5.
I got
Four.
1.36.
What do you have?
Do you have the 4 yellows?
You got $1 million
Yeah, and
just
the
for
4
the.
yellows, but only half.
Yeah, I only did.
Oh, you
half.
did
Oh,
have.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Only the
Okay.
half.
Yep, for 1
Okay.
year.
For
What
1
did-
year, just 1 year, it's
Yeah.
1.5 million. Or 1.5164, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's
so,
another
but of that,
400,000.
592,810
Yeah.
are these.
Yeah.
So we would raise it 1.5 million, but this ESSER grant is gonna give us the opportunity to have 592,810.
And we still satisfy the.
So
other
we're
$1 million.
not putting it in both.
You're choosing.
We're telling them our budget would increase 1.5. But we're not having the city increase that much because from ESSER, we can get 592.
But in 2 years, we need you to.
But in 2
supply-
years, we need
Right.
another
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
592.
that's, I mean, we could, you know, we could say that. and
Do you know what I mean?
hopefully-
So it's not
Yeah.
putting it in both
Mhm.
and only ending up getting one.
So
We're
what
telling
does
the
that
city, this
increase
is
at?
what we
Yeah, but
need.
does that bring the total to?
But of that, this is how much we're putting in the grant. So it's not on the taxpayers.
So what are you saying we're increasing the
Yeah,
budget by,
so
besides the grant?
923,
Okay,
923, 660,
those are the permanents.
this
Yes.
sheet,
which is 2.6.
So
To
you're
raise it
saying
to
leave the
2.61.
others in ESSER for
but tell
now?
them.
Oh, so there's no.
But tell
Okay.
them, we're increasing our
there's
budget
no
one,
spot, yeah,
well,
I see
Okay,
what you're
which
saying, yeah.
line items are you talking about now? 'Cause
Your
I'm
page
totally
tonight.
lost.
So
Your
your
page
page
tonight.
tonight,
the yellow and the others,
Are going into GB?
No.
no,
no.
No.
We're saying
Everything's-
the total
this
increase
and-
to our budget is 1.5 million,
Including the grant.
okay? Including the ESSER grant,
yellows, right.
okay?
Mhm.
So including those items in ESSER grant, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items. Okay, for year one. So the 6 items for year one amount to 592,810. So we're only raising the budget 923,660.
And we're gonna transfer the remaining increase over to.
She's saying
grant
leave
money.
these
Add
here
it
for
to-
now, but to tell the city.
Okay, but where does that leave us? 9,
At
He already had it.
923,660.
that's what he came in.
Yeah,
with.
that's
So
what he
that's with
came
only
in at.
$1 million,
So
and
the
it's not the
ESSER
1.5.
so
Yeah,
that's the
1.5
1
years.
million.
So that brings
Which-
us to 2.61%.
So,
Right.
okay, so that's where we
Yeah.
were.
Right.
Okay,
So you have 9390 for the Spanish, 60 for music, 92 for BCBA,
mhm,
50 for instructional tech,
yep,
88,420 for media,
yep.
and 212 for the floor tax for 1 year.
1 year.
So you're gonna take all 4 techs, not split them.
Correct.
What's
Okay.
that equal?
That
that-
equals 592,810. So the
Okay.
592,810 plus the 923,660 gives us 1.5.
Yeah.
So we're really increasing 1.5, but we're not charging the taxpayers for that because we're taking 592,810 out of ESSER.
Out of the grant, correct.
Out of our needs, and we're putting in grant needs, or grant
Funding.
funding.
With the understanding that in year 2, we'll need another 592,810.
Which will be an ESSER year 2,
Well,
but
ESSER
here,
year 2, but we,
except for these ones won't be.
except for, right,
Right,
right, the 92, 50, 88, and 212 will be in ESSER 2.
But in year 3,
We'll need it all.
we'll need,
We'll need the whole.
so then we're back to the balloon payment.
we're back to a balloon payment.
Yeah.
But it's a half
But
a
it's a
balloon.
$500,000, but it's not the
But it's
full.
half a balloon?
Right, it's half a balloon.
Half a balloon,
Half a balloon.
a small balloon.
Oh, boy.
But it's like we're telling the
If we
city,
follow that for the budget.
know,
Great,
we're lucky that we're getting this.
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
ESSER.
Oh, yeah. absolutely.
Otherwise, the budget would be raised 1.5 million,
What a deal.
right?
It's a fact.
Plus, they're getting 6 million.
Here's where I'm at, and
No, they're
then I'm
getting-
really
they're
not gonna
getting
say
free.
You
anything,
said that
but
before.
we're just a little bit over
Oh,
our
they're getting-
contractual.
They're getting 3 million
increases.
I was gonna add that.
So I just
Community.
think that,
Right.
Never mind the inflation
I
rate.
can't hear what's going on.
If Fiona said we're just over our contractual requirements in the first place, we're not really getting anything in increases at this point.
Right.
Right.
And forget inflation, which the Fed's saying maybe 2.5 this year, because we're gonna have a two-year jump because of, the excess spending. But, the real, not the, I mean, the real inflation number is probably a negative.
No, it's 1.3.
After 2.5% COLA, I mean, not employees. when-
Oh, okay.
No,
No,
the
the-
inflation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, relative to the rest of the city, it's reasonable. More than reasonable.
Anything else?
My head's still spinning. On
Did
the
we lose
1.5
Kathy?
turned into
Wow.
1, so.
Did we
No,
lose Kathy?
we're saying we need $1.5 million.
Yeah.
Between this and that. We're gonna give this, we're not gonna ask for the increase, we're just gonna use that for grant money. And we're asking for $1 million. We're asking the city for $1 million.
I think I need to
Basically.
sleep on it.
What's that?
I need to sleep on it
Mhm.
Instead of
Well, we meet again on Wednesday.
There we
so-
go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another chance.
Wednesday, okay, sounds good. So we'll do it that way. Well, we'll see what the full board says. That's our idea, do it that way. So it'd be a 2.61% increase. Right, Mr. Harrow?
Correct.
So.
We have other things to look at after.
Yeah,
So just to think about before Wednesday. So if we added all of that in, what would our increase be?
The 1.5.
That would be the 1.5.
Yeah, so what percentage?
So
increase?
you look
Yeah,
at
what would
another
that change to? That's what I was asking.
199.9. 851 plus 192.780. 2,000,005. Divided by 3.4.
What's the 3.4?
That's with the 592.
If we add
Yeah.
everything in, just for people to think about
Yeah.
before Wednesday. Well, is budget moving this to the full board for
yes.
Wednesday or?
I think, I think we should. I don't know what else there is to, well, we could talk about this all day and every day and come out to different outcomes each time we talk, but, I mean, I think we should move it to the full board and then move it to the city and then we'll see what they say. You know, so. You know, so. We are asking, for, a good chunk of capital, which I think we definitely need too, so. we gotta be
We'll give you
cognizant.
what it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah, what it is now, what it, yeah,
1,
a tier.
2, 3.
Right, yeah, a
Okay.
tiered look at it, yeah.
That's what we did last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good, so, but, personally, I do think that we really need to try and get as much capital as possible. If it comes down to splitting hairs with the city, if they say, if they're just saying a general, or if they say X amount out of capital, whatever the case may be, we need that capital, we need that technology, in order for the school system to go forward.
Well, that's why we have to wait to see what the grant is,
Yeah,
6.9
right,
million,
right,
what they
because
want.
because that might help us out a lot there,
Let's hope
so,
that helps.
yeah, because,
Because that could take a lot of pressure off
yeah, right,
capital,
Maybe
Right.
technology.
right, which will help us on this
Yeah.
end. Right. So
Because
hopefully.
is my thoughts,
Mhm.
if you could buy
Mhm.
9 through 12
Mhm.
now,
Yep.
computers.
That are in the capital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
it's-
Yeah.
So you save 5 years,
Right,
Right.
and those are things that are gonna last for years.
7 years, because Ally's gonna buy the
Ally's
new
got-
ones,
that's
right
what I
now.
was gonna say, Ally's got the new ones.
Okay.
Did you say 7 or 8 years? Ally? 8. She said 8.
So we're cutting it down.
Yeah. So, yeah, so that would be good too, so
Oh, yeah.
hopefully. Knock on wood.
That's what the money's for, so.
Right. So, all right. So, yeah, my suggestion is we move it to the full board, but what does the committee think?
I agree with that.
We'll give you that tier.
Mr.
approach.
Corey, I just want to get Ed's
Yeah.
take on
I
it.
think that makes sense.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, thank you, okay. All right, so we'll move that to the full board. Comments for the good of the order?
It's nice to be back in Florida. You're up here in the weather, and I think you got a lot done tonight. I'm happy.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. All set.
Sue,
All set.
Ms. Harold? I'm good, thank you. You good? Mr. Lafreniere?
I'm a little disappointed that I will be missing Wednesday's meetings because it is parent-teacher conferences. If we can keep that in mind as we go forward, especially with some of the big topics that are being addressed. You're eliminating the ability of staff to participate or view the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks. Jess?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Kathy's still on, or did she leave us? She's gone. She's gone, okay, I thought so. Okay,
I'm
Ed?
still on here.
Oh,
I'm here, guys.
okay. Comment for the good of the order?
I don't think they can hear me.
You can hear you. That's Laura.
That's Laura.
Oh,
That's me. Yes.
oh, okay.
Hi.
Hi.
I just
Laura,
wanted to
comments
say
for the
real
good of the order?
I do, yes. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the fact that our board listens to the needs of the district. And, you know, you're really pushing us to look at what we feel we need and bring it forward. And I appreciate that because I think that there's, in a lot of districts, that wouldn't happen.
Thank you. Ed?
All good here. Thank you.
Fiona?
Good.
Ellen?
Happy to hear us talking about education
Yeah,
so much
yeah.
in the budget.
It's different.
It is.
I just want to say thank you all. And Marissa, you noticed I didn't ask you. So.
Just smile.
Good
Marissa.
Thank you.
So cute.
So, all right, yeah, thank you all. And, you know, can't wait for Wednesday's discussion. Topics for future meetings, COVID, monthly financials, ESSER 2, American Rescue.
Yep.
Yep.
What else? Let's see, the roof is all set. We got anything else, Ed, on the horizon? That I'm missing? Do we have to go out for any contracts or anything? Propane or anything?
Propane will be out to bid next week or the week after.
Okay, I'll put that on the list.
And also,
Propane contract, yep,
and special ed transportation's going out, so
okay. Special ed transportation.
out of town transportation,
What's that?
the out of town special ed.
Yeah, okay.
We're just
Armand, did you get the document I shared with you today?
I didn't look. I didn't have time to look today. But I will look later. Is this something we should mention now or?
Well, it's just the DC trip financials, which again, I thought it was being brought to as far as whether we're refunding what World Strides is withholding. And I thought that was going to budget before it went to board.
Go to budget for next month.
Next month.
Okay,
Is that okay?
that it's World Strides refunds are up to 12 weeks out. So
Okay, all right. So next month, so we'll do that, the World Stride refunds. Thank you for the information. We'll say that, 21-22 budget, we'll put that on there too, just in case we need to discuss further. Never know. Okay, motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.